violence. It's not, you're not hurting someone, but when, like, imagine you're in college and you have a roommate.
Okay.
And you just started there, and Christmas comes along and your roommate hands you a present. Like, you weren't thinking of getting your roommate a present, right? But now what do you do? For the rest of your life, you might have to wonder, do I still keep giving this? You know, you went to college, your friends, you've gone up to different places. Do I send that person a card or not? Like, that's an obligation has been formed just by giving a gift. A permanent obligation potentially has been formed. And in one society in New Guinea, and we see this in ancient records of Northwest, the Haida people and so on, the Northwest coast, the potlatch is a destruction of property. And the gift giving in the New Guinea is called the mocha, where somebody a particular man, a big man, gains wealth. He just announces, I want to have a mocha, so give me a pig. And he says it to everybody, and everybody gives him a pig. And, well, I have these pigs, and now I have to feed them. Give me yams. So now people are giving him yams. And then, well, I need some more women to work with me to help. So he ends up with these women who aren't exactly wives, but they're helping him.
Right.
So he's got 5 wives, 300 pigs, and a giant pile of yams. And maybe he's somewhere in there, gets like a Land Rover or some cash or some rare forest bird feathers. And then when he gets it all together, he and his group go over to their neighbors who are their enemy and says, excuse me a second, we have something for you. And they give them the pigs, and they give them the yams, they give them the Land Rover, they give them the money in a big giant ritual display. They do enumerate it and say, this is like 20 pigs and 300 pounds of yams or whatever, more than you gave me, more than your father gave my father 10 years ago. I've defeated you. Right?
Whoa.
So look at that in another culture, you realize, wow. Then you come back to our culture and realize, wow, our gift giving is actually part of a ritual that includes control and lifelong obligations, not just being nice, but being obligated. Okay, so what I learned from the Pygmies was they do, another example. The women wear this thing called, ironically, tattoo, sounds like tattoo, and it's a plant. You take the juice out, it's a clear juice, you put it on the skin, and it darkens it like henna does. Okay?
Interesting.
So they put these amazing, beautiful designs on their bodies, but mostly on their faces.
Okay.
There are no mirrors in this society. You can't design on your own face, and you never know what it really looks like. Your sister, your mother, your daughter, your friend does it. It's always 2 people. One person does. Now you could put something on someone's face, like, hit me or something. You could write something bad on there, but they don't. There's trust and bonding. When an animal is killed, normally it's butchered by 2 men.
Okay.
One man can butcher an animal, but it's always butchered by 2.
Interesting. It sounds like they do a lot of things in pairs that don't necessarily need to be done in pairs.
Exactly. And and there's many, many more things like that having to do with the butchering ritual and everything else, where the thing you do requires 2 people because of your cultural norm, not because of the thing itself. And these are strictly followed, and no one talks about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people necessarily even know that they're doing it. But then you come back to our society and you realize, well, for example, if someone eats alone in a restaurant, people grab a bite to eat at lunch at work or something, right? Like, but when people go out to a restaurant in the evening, they don't go alone usually.
Right.
People don't even go to movies alone. I'm sorry, people who tell you, oh, I do all the time. Sure. Everybody's got an exception, right? You're special, snowflake if you go alone. But most people don't go to a movie alone. And when you go there with someone else, what do you do normally? Unless you're, Lorraine Bobbitt, you sit there ignoring the other person watching the movie.
Right.
Like, why do you do that?
Right. Like, what's the point of having that other person there? Yeah.
Right. So we do things like that in our society too. But I think the idea is that they are so dependent upon each other day to day for subsistence and everything else they do, that they just, their culture, their day-to-day life is just full of stuff that they do to bond.
Do you think it's healthy, or do you think it's like codependence? Maybe a little bit of both?
Well, I think it's healthy. I think it's interesting. I mean, there was a case where a young man was offered by missionaries the chance to live on the mission, and they told him all the great things he would get. They were basically bribing him, and he basically and he said to me all these things that he would get at the mission. I was thinking, my God, he's going to go live in the mission. I said, well, are you going there? And he said, of course not. Why would I leave my people?
Interesting.
And it's like you realize the reason why they still exist as a culture is because they are quite satisfied and happy in their culture. And this is something, of course, that Westerners don't get. We always hear about people in Africa living in a mud hut, and that's like a horrible thing. Well, there are plenty of people living in horrible conditions in Africa, but these folks live in a grass dome, and you might have a fantasy that they are so good at building a little grass dome, or sorry, it's a leaf dome, that it wouldn't leak in the rain, but it leaks in the rain, and it rains every fucking day, right? So, and to describe that to Westerners like a horrible life, and it is a horrible life when you go there and live that way for about 2 weeks, and then you get used to all those things, and it's fine after that, and you can't understand why you would leave this place, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think it's codependence. I think it is codependence in a technical sense, but not in the sense of people supporting each other in something that's unhealthy.
Interesting. And so how long were you there for?
Well, over a period of a few years, I was there most of the time.
Got it.
And then while I was there, go ahead.
No, continue.
While I was there, I worked on an expedition that was doing something completely different in a different part of Zaire, nearby, well, a few days drive away, in which we're excavating a site on what was then known as, it used to be known as Lake Edward. And of course, the names have changed. It's now known as Lake Rutanzege, but it's one of the great, Africa has a Great Lake District.
Okay.
Lake Albert, Lake Edward, etc. Tanganyika. These are all the old names. Now they're known as Tanzania, Rutanzege, and Lake Mobutu Sese Seko, which I think has changed its name since Mobutu was deposed. It's got a new name. Anyway, this is on Edward and the Semliki River in the middle of a national park. Now that place is now destroyed. They're mining oil, they're mining iron. It's been completely wrecked, but it was at one time the largest park on Earth until edged out by the Denali Park. But it was next.
Denali, is that Alaska?
In Alaska. But since there's 2 or 3 parks adjoining, it's actually the bigger parkland, but it's all destroyed now. But it was really a remote area. It was really nice to work there. And we were looking at a site that we figured to be about 2.3, 2.4 million years old. That might have been the westernmost extension of early human ancestors.
Wow.
But we never could prove one way or the other if that was true.
Interesting.
In our work, but we worked there for a couple of years. And the people who worked there, I worked there for 1 season, the last season. There would have been a couple of seasons before that. That was fun. Anyway, fun. I got involved in the question of what is the reason and the nature of the split between chimps and humans.
Oh.
And my thinking on that was influenced by some work by Richard Wrangham, who was working on a similar problem from the chimp point of view, and I was working on it from the human point of view. We were actually both in the field in the same region, but we didn't know each other at the time. And he was looking at chimps. He was visiting a chimp site in the Congo where the chimps had done something no other chimp had done, which is to, during the dry season, which is just about 8 weeks long, during the dry season, they would dig in the ground and dig up this root of a certain plant that was completely unique. And as far as I know at the time, known to only be in that one, you know where the gorillas are in ruins into that area. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it lives on these, this plant lives on these volcanoes, and it's a giant root, like 5-6 feet long, that's full of water. Because during that time of year, there's no other water. It's a volcanic soil. There's no puddles. There's no streams. There's nothing. When it stops raining, there's no water. So they would dig up this root and get their water that way for a few weeks.
Wow.
Mammals do not dig up roots.
Right.
Only a few species dig up roots. Bears, pigs, and then there's some fossorial rodents that live underground. Other animals that live underground don't go for roots. They're doing something else. Okay, and there's a couple other rodents that dig up some roots. When you look at the bears and the pigs and the rodents that dig up roots, this is what I just independently noticed, their teeth and jaws and heads looking at them from below look like our ancestors. They have giant, short faces, giant teeth, really deep palates inside the mouth. Exactly what you need if you're going to eat something that requires to be digested from inside your mouth, because that's where the glands are that produce the enzyme that breaks down starch. Roots are starch. So our ancestors had a head evolved to process roots. And these chimps are eating roots. So it occurred to us that modern chimps mostly eat leaves as their fallback food when there's not enough fruit. Mm. if there were fewer leaves, but there were lots of roots, if you just discovered roots as a chimp-like animal, you just discovered roots as a fallback food, that would, number one, serve very well as a fallback food. Number two, there's more roots. The drier the environment, the more roots. So it's a conveyor belt out of the rainforest onto the savanna. And the best, even though the chimps did it with their hands, the best way to dig up roots is with a stick. And if you're going to have a stick, you want to sharpen it. And the very earliest stone tools are all look like stick sharpening tools. So the idea was it was the evolution of root eating that split a population off of a chimp-like ancestor to ultimately become the human lineage.
Interesting. And
so
do you think did that population survive because they were able to get water, and that's how they were able to develop so much further? Or how do you think?
It wasn't so much the water as it was, that would be a factor, just the food. If you can eat, if you have a fallback food that gets you through starvation periods, that's actually what drives your evolution. Many animals don't have this, but if an animal has a fallback food, the fallback food is usually hard to get or hard to eat, something hard about it.
Yeah.
And that's where you evolve. So, for example, chimps opening up nuts to get it inside, that's hard to do, but it requires producing tools to open the nuts.
Yeah. Or like coconuts.
Yeah. So anything that's hard to get at will leave a stronger imprint evolutionarily.
Interesting.
And in this case, it left an imprint in the form of the giant teeth with big, thick enamel and our overall other changes in what makes a human different from a chimp.
Interesting.
So and then later with Wrangham and some other folks, David Pilbeam and Jamie Holland and some others, we worked out the theory that after this happened, somewhere along the line, we think early, people disagree, people think it's late, we think it's early, invented the idea of using fire to cook your food.
Right.
And when you can cook your food, suddenly all these things that you couldn't eat are now edible, because cooking usually damages and destroys the chemicals that are poisonous in food.
Right.
And just stuff you can't digest and so on. It makes a lot of things edible. And because we think it's early Homo erectus did this, because Homo erectus did two things that are remarkable. One is, compared to its immediate ancestors, it doubled in body size, which means a lot more demand for energy, right? And its teeth halved in surface area.
Interesting. So the body got bigger, but the teeth got smaller? Right.
So how do your mechanism for intaking food become wimpy and your body gets giant, unless you're doing something different with your food? Right. We're suggesting that's cooking the food.
Interesting. I would have never attributed cooking to why their teeth would have shrank. I would have attributed that to maybe like more resources available, or like high, that's so interesting.
And it certainly is more resources available, because when you cook, you increase the number of resources significantly. Right.
You do by cooking? Oh, that's true. Yeah. Because like you said, the things you couldn't eat before, and now you can eat. And I also feel like maybe by cooking your food, you're able to eat that food longer. Say like the next morning, you can eat something that's cooked that would have killed you the next morning before.
Definitely. And that's, by the way, going back to the pygmies, they cook everything they eat.
That's smart.
They live in a petri dish with no refrigerators.
Man.
Right? So except for some fruits. There's some fruits they put in their mouth, but most foods they cook it before they eat it.
That's interesting. I feel like you could write a whole book on the things we could learn from the pygmies. Like, passive aggressive gift giving, cook your food so it's not dangerous for you. But Dr. Layden, this has been a really fantastic conversation. I'm going to send you an email because I have so many questions about this.
Sure.
I've learned more about pygmies.
I am never going to accept a gift from anybody again after what you told us.
Be very careful, and always have a gift. I'm sure you're too young to have learned this yet, but at some point you'll learn. Always have a gift, probably a fruitcake, wrapped up and nearby.
Just in case.
Next time I see SR, I'm going to give him a present.
Oh, no, please don't. No, seriously, Dr. Layden, thank you so much. I think that was an absolutely incredible way to start this fundraiser stream. I learned so much, and I was just sitting backstage like, oh my gosh, do we have more time? So you're gonna have to come back and hang out with us at Skeptic Haven again.
I will sometime, and I hope people donate, and good luck on your nonprofit status quest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Out. Okay, cheers.
See ya. Man, I am I get to play the role again of coming in and ruining the really cool conversations, and I'm really bummed about that. But
I don't know why you keep doing it.
No, it was last time. I was told I just have that face that stops conversation And so it was like, yeah, come on back. What are you doing? Are you free? And I was like, yeah, sure. No,
Well,
it's fine.
to be fair, the only reason it stops conversation is because during these you log on like.
That's true. That's true. I am very, it's RBF, but like really hardcore.
Opposed to like, hey, it's me. Get the fuck out. Like, get out of here.
Well, we started off quite strong, I think. And we have, again, seriously, you guys, like another 2.5 hours of incredible people. We've actually got 3 super wonderful guests that are going to come on in just a second. But before we bring them on, one of the things we love to do here at Skeptic Haven is talk about myths, break them up, debunk them, bust them, whatever terminology you prefer to use. So we have a couple of myths here that have been talked about a lot of times, with Christmas, just like the myth of the war on Christmas. There's no war. We already won. The atheists already won.
We did, and we continue to win, and we will take prisoners.
That's right. It's all about capitalism now, anyway. So I think Jesus lost at least. But anyway, we're gonna bring our wonderful guests on next. But before that, take a look at this Christmas myth.
Surprising to even many Christians, Christmas is not the most important Christian holiday. Easter is. Think of this: everyone has a birthday, but not everyone can defeat death. Believed to bring eternal salvation.
I told you, Fred. That's right, Bon. You'd never catch me in one of those outfits.
Oh. Hi. Hello. Hey. How are you, Dr. Bird and Dr. Kip? Good to see you.
You too, Sydney.
Hi.
And
again.
It's nice to meet you. This is my first time chatting with you, so thank you.
So I feel a little bit weird because I've been Googling everyone the last couple of days. I've met Dr. Kip before, but I feel like I've met you two and I have not met you. So if you don't mind, for our audiences, we're just going to go around the circle to kind of give a brief introduction of yourself. We can start with Dr. Bird and then Dr. Josh and then Dr. Kip, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I am a biblical scholar, so that's my wheelhouse, and Newer Testament, the Second Testament for Christians, is my focus. But I do teach. Yes, I do teach intros to both, and so I have a couple books out that are relevant for your community or this community. Yes. My second book is called Permission Granted: Take the Bible into Your Own Hands, and it is essentially like the boiling down of the really important things that I taught in intros at an undergraduate level about the Bible. Like, you don't have to have a faith or anything. You do or don't. It doesn't matter. And let's talk about these things about the Bible. And it does shift things usually for very conservative Christians. And it's also empowering for people who do still want to have a faith, but like want to be critical thinkers, and it's all kinds of stuff like that. And then I just had a book come out, and I'm very excited about it. It's called Marriage in the Bible. What do the texts say?
That's the one.
Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that. That is for a much wider audience. It is for everything from, I don't really give a rat's ass what the Bible says about marriage, but maybe you should, because here's all these things that people misunderstand about it, to, oh my gosh, I want to have a biblical marriage. And like, that's not actually a thing, or it's not what you think it is. And let's talk about that.
Very interesting. And one of the things I think that also is really neat about your work is that it's heavy topics that I think a lot of people need to read into, but you deliver it in a very accessible way, in a way that's like entertaining to watch, entertaining to read. Because I think sometimes when people are really interested in things and they look for research into it, they find heavy research and they feel like they aren't quite at the level they need to be to really understand what it is they're reading. Like, I'm one of those people who have to Google words in what I'm reading in order to understand that before.
Sure.
So I really appreciate that about your style as well. Very accessible. So thank you for your work.
That's my intention. Thank you.
Dr. Josh?
Yeah. So I am Dr. Joshua Bowen. I got my PhD in Ancient Near Eastern Studies from Johns Hopkins, where I majored in Sumerian and Akkadian, and then minored in Hebrew Bible. Of course, I have a extensive background in Hebrew Bible from my days in seminary. So I got a master's of theology and Old Testament studies. So Hebrew is sort of like my fun thing. But yeah, I guess I do what ends up being a lot of counter apologetic stuff online. I have a couple of books out. I guess the Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament, volumes 1 and 2 are the ones. The bestseller is the Sumerian book, though, which I think is still crazy.
I was looking that up, and I was
Amazing.
I was shocked by that, to be honest. Not that it's not interesting topics, just because I would think that the first two were just the most Googled ones. Like I would just assume that statistically, I thought that was very interesting. And also, you are the reason that I now know the term Assyriology. I didn't know there was a term to describe the studies of basically like Assyria and their antiquities. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
I believe the Sumerian grammar is the one that that bassist Flea picked up too, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Actually,
I mean, are you being serious right now?
Yeah.
No, we're being serious. Dead serious.
Are you being serious?
yeah.
Ah!
All right, I'll find.
Aren't you
I'll
glad I
find the
retired?
video.
Mhm.
I'll find the video. Since Dr. Bird doesn't believe me, I can tell.
No, I do. I just needed to, needed to confirm.
So,
Dr. Bird,
here,
one
this
thing
is-
I did want to
Okay.
ask you really quick before we, and feel free to tell me to fuck off. I could not tell. Do you consider yourself still spiritual,
This is
or are
very
you an
intentional.
atheist or agnostic? Like I couldn't, because your research is so like even keeled. I couldn't tell where you stood on the, and I wasn't sure if that was on purpose. I wasn't sure. If,
It is.
Got
Thank
it.
you. I'm
it.
so
Okay.
glad that you said that. It is very intentional.
perfect.
I don't
You don't have to. You don't have to reveal.
divulge what my identity is in the
Yeah.
realm of religion and spirituality.
things.
I will actually say it here. If I have to use a label, and I don't like labels,
Right.
but if I have to, I would say humanist.
Perfect.
And there's a
I love it
long
if you-
conversation why I'm not using Christian or atheist or agnostic.
Yep. That could be. I feel like for every person, that could be an hour-long conversation.
Could,
But
it could.
yeah.
But I also
Yeah.
think we should like redefine God and like have a whole different thing. But
Yeah.
so since we can't do that for now, I'm a humanist.
Perfect.
I like a positive label, right?
Same.
Instead of saying an anti the thing that everybody else is doing, right? No, I'm a thing that's positive.
You're
believe in
pro.
humanity. I
You're
am
pro stuff.
humanity.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Now, Dr. Josh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, it's fine. Here, this is if anybody's familiar with Killer Priest, he's part of the Wu-Tang Clan.
That's
And
amazing.
That
that's
is
our
amazing,
book.
actually. I love that.
And then in just a second, you will see Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
What?
and they are discussing
That is the coolest thing
Megan and I
ever.
both wrote
That
that.
is just the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah, they talked about it for
I know,
a
right?
couple minutes.
That's
And then-
really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ended up sending Flea a copy.
Talk about worlds colliding. That's
Right?
wild.
Right?
Yeah,
It's like,
it
and
was
Dr.
wild.
Kip, Miley Cyrus has a copy of your book, does she not? She does, right? That's a
On pre-order, yes.
yeah. I was gonna say, I thought so. Huge fan. I saw her
Multiple
and
copies. Yeah.
Shia LaBeouf talking about it too on TV. It was very interesting.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So how are you, Dr. Kip? How's it going?
Excellent. I'm doing well. It's good to see you again.
Of course, good to see you
It's good to see everybody. We're all buddies. You know, we're
Yeah.
part of the biblical studies cabal. We hang out in the dark recesses of your mother's basement, and we plot the destruction of the known world. So
You know, that's the Christians are always saying that's what we're doing is plotting destruction. So
Yeah.
that's we
Yeah.
might as well, keep to the label.
absolutely,
I just don't want people to know how
absolutely.
lazy I actually am. That's the thing. Like, I would truly I would rather people think I'm plotting the destruction of the universe than I'm hanging out with parrots as often as I am, like not leaving the house, to be honest with you. So
I did want to know the names
Oh,
of those feathered friends next to you. Do you
Yes.
have?
So this is
Yeah.
the office aviary. They're not actually in here right now. Usually
okay.
they are.
Oh, okay.
They're very loud around this time of day,
Yeah,
though.
sure. Okay.
We have 10 of them. I have 10.
Oh,
So the 4 that come in here are Picasso, Bluey, Willa, and Queenie, and they're conures. They're green cheek conures.
Nice. Okay.
But this is
Okay.
their loud period. So they're in the aviary over there. Dr. Kip knows. He's seen them.
Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
seen them live and
Yes.
on your shoulders.
Yes. And we've been joined by Derek, Myth
Hi,
Vision,
Derek.
the myth, the vision.
Woo!
How's it
I
going,
showed
Derek?
up late because I was reading this book. I don't.
Did Flea send you that copy, Derek?
Okay, actually, that's a lie. That's a lie. We shouldn't lie during Christmas. Or Mythmas, whatever you wanted to call it.
Yeah, let's call it Mythmas.
Yeah. Thanks for
you of all people should have remembered it was called Mythmas. It's literally in your name.
Right?
Just like. How have you been, Derek? What's new? What's going on?
Oh, what's new?
Is the tattoo new?
Yeah,
I was thinking that. Yeah.
Nice.
So I got the kids all on the bottom, and then the queen up here, and then the last name. She's getting tatted upstairs right now.
That is so fresh. Like it literally looks like you shouldn't be touching it. It looks like you should just. Did you just get that just now?
Yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought like for the first week you're supposed to have it. I thought I covered mine for the first week or something. Isn't that no?
You could put the
have things progressed so much.
I did the second skin the first night, and then after that it was just like put some of this certain type of like very light. Don't put it thick. But I was sinning the whole time while I was getting it done, you know, because you're not supposed to have a tattoo. And you know, it felt good. It felt good to.
Are we showing off new tattoos? Is that the thing?
I mean,
I heard someone might have a new one. Can we see?
Do you have a new one, Josh?
It's on his butt.
Way.
Let's see.
Oh my! Is that Gilgamesh?
Oh, that is
what?
Delightful. Are you going for a full sleeve, or are you just the upper?
It went down to.
Yeah, you're like you're halfway there.
Yeah.
This is wild. When did you get that done?
A month ago, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's really new. All right, Dr. Bird, Dr.
I have
Kip.
to show my tattoo. It's hilarious. It's like it's one of the most ironic tattoos ever for who I am.
Okay.
I was not expecting this, but I'm not the least bit upset about it. I love the direction we're going with this.
People.
What is it?
What is it?
Is it words? Does it say something?
It looks fancy. Is there?
Do we need to? Can we?
Oh, there we go.
Like zoom in on it.
It looks like.
Okay.
Is it?
What is Yahweh? Chesed Adonai.
Is it Yah?
Yeah, I have God. I have a male God tattooed to my ass. Can we talk about that?
Yes, please. By all means.
What was I? You know.
That deserves some super chats right there. By the way.
Right.
Yes, please.
Thank you. The
So
dude was like, bend over, drop your pants, bend over, grab your ankles. And I'm like, no.
I was just waiting for Cindy to be like, oh, yeah?
When did you get that done?
A week after I graduated from seminary. So it has like ivy. So I drew it. I create like I wrote it.
That's cool.
So it's like, you know, the vine, like I am the vine, you are the branches. Like so Jesus and Yahweh all in my tattoo. That was at that time when I was still believing.
So is it's the tetragrammaton?
It's Chesed Adonai. Yes. Chesed.
Okay.
In the tetragrammaton.
All right.
Yep.
That's
on
wild.
my
in an Aramaic script?
Hebrew.
I couldn't tell if it was okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
the ivy is what threw you.
I
on
gotta
that.
ask though,
Mhm.
even like especially at your more religious, is that not sacrilegious to get God on your ass?
Oh, that was why I did it at the time.
I have to ask. like I am not the gatekeeper. I love everyone, tattoo placements, everything,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it's that just I'm confused by that.
Well, it was a very devout and also like fuck you to sinfulness thing, you know.
Got it.
So it's like I'm into this whole like mercy. Chesed is like the mercy, you know, the good love and faithfulness thing of God, right? And so it was like my badass feminist, you know, saying whatever to tattooing, but then like, yeah, I'm bringing my faith and like Hebrew Bible and New Testament together and this living faith that you have. And it was like a couple months later, I was like, what was I thinking? Putting male God on my butt. Like did not think
You've
that
been branded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say I am grateful you did so, because today that has given me what I needed to go into the marathon. So if for no better reason than you have changed my life, I want you to know it was a good
that's
decision.
gonna change your life.
Yeah.
I'm going for the Furies next. Like, I'm gonna do something like that if I get another tattoo. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, here we go. We got a super chat, and Nitty says, "Does this mean I have to show my tattoo of Solomon's trees and some valleys?"
Yes,
It does.
I just read Song of Solomon yesterday, and we're talking about the channels, and the Hebrew says, the footnote says, this word is difficult to translate. I'm like, oh, I know what they're talking about when they're talking about some channels. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then the fruit, like sampled her fruit. Like, I think it's pretty clear what the channel is. You know what I'm saying?
But
Megan and I did it was like a Sumerian erotic poetry video. Yes. Everybody's gonna go, I guess, YouTube that. But we're dressed up as porn stars. So I've got like this unbuttoned shirt, and I got these chains hanging down, and
awesome.
Yeah, but we read Sumerian erotic poetry, and it's I mean, they're not
you do.
They're not shy about talking about my well-watered lettuce,
That's now, Dr. Kip, do you have ink?
Yes, ma'am. I do not.
Oh, you do not?
I made the decision after seminary, but not for religious reasons. It was mostly because I was just irritated by the fact that suddenly everybody was getting one.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, nope, it's not for me. My body is a temple. So
you can just say you're afraid of pain. It's okay. Nobody's going to judge you.
I was going to say, if you don't like needles, that's okay, Dr. Kip.
Yeah, I have heard it hurts quite a lot. I have kids that have tattoos, so not sure how my youngest has a couple that he managed to have done without me signing a parental consent form.
Like the stick poke kind?
The what?
The little stick poke kind, or like a professional?
No, real. It's real. Oh. So yeah, he's got So, but that's neither here nor there.
Since we're showing religious tattoos and Jennifer Bird's recent book about marriage, which is something we're gonna cover. Trust me, I'm so sorry.
You should get the book any day now.
Well, they sent the ebook, but
no. I just had 3 different reviewers tell me they just got it like yesterday and today.
Okay,
I did too.
You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this because you're gonna know what we were thinking when we got this from the older perspective. Right here it is. It says, let me see. What God has joined together,
let no one separate.
And it's our anniversary day. Let no man, what is it?
Separate.
Mm-hmm. The wife has the same. Ryan has it on her ribs. That sucked, by the way.
I bet.
Bad. But you could tell it was because we were doing the formal, correct version of marriage biblically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
right over the ribs. Right. Yeah.
Kip and I are gonna get matching tattoos that say "May God watch over you and me while we're apart."
Like that. We got another super chat that says, "So funny, guys. This is the best. Needed this today." You're welcome. Thank you. Well, thank you first of all for the super chat, and then thank you everybody for making their day. Yeah, I don't have any tattoos, not because I don't like tattoos. So I didn't get medicated for ADHD until I was 30. So I went through like phase where you're like, this is not a phase. And then suddenly you're in a totally different phase. And you're like, this is not a phase. So like I would have so many irrelevant permanent images on my body that I was like, this, like even back then I was like, even though I said this isn't a phase, let's just wait. Let's just wait and see. And whoops, I lost my headphones. And it turns out they were all phases. Like I would have, I went through all the heck. I'm gonna keep doing this. Hold on, sorry. There we go. I went through every phase. I went through, I'm gonna be the girl who wears leather all the time, like biker jackets phase. I went through a phase where I thought for sure I was gonna do like MMA and stuff. It was weird. It was weird, guys. It was a weird time. I went through like a stand-up comedy phase. That phase lasted 16 years, though. I did 16 years.
But that's why, Sydney, if you're gonna do it, you have to do something like. That's why I didn't feel shame. Like I was like, this is permanent, families forever.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna screw up with that. Like if I put like Jesus,
mm-hmm.
she might be like, dude, look at this ridiculous, version of Jesus I put on my shoulder.
Right. Like I know for sure high school me would have had like Demi Lovato lyrics about how like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm older than her. Like I'm older than her and I would have done that. You know what I'm saying?
Awesome.
Yeah.
And when Gilgamesh worship is vogue again, Josh is going to be cool.
Yeah.
I'm ahead of the curve.
You are. You're going to bring that in.
Waiting for the Epic of Gilgamesh to make its reclaim into fashion like it does every 20 years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's right. Every 20,000 years.
There you go.
I want to hear a fun story about my tattoo, though. Like, since we're doing this,
I would love to.
So back in the day, right? So this was right after seminary. I had probably one of the worst summers of my life. It was a very difficult summer for reasons I will not get into. But here's the way my theological, like I'm all spiritual brain thought is I had this reminder of God's love, right? Chesed Adonai, right? on my butt, that every time I took a dump, like I was reminded every time I
Yep.
it was there to remind me
that through
that difficult summer. And then all of a sudden it was like I was beyond it, and it was like, oh my God, that
he's got your back.
He did.
He's got your back.
He's got your back through all the shit.
Through the shit of life, right?
Through all the shit. He does. Yes. He does. Yes. So how about this? What if we vote on what my first tattoo should be?
Oh.
What should it like? What do you think? I was thinking a parrot themed one because that's not a phase. They're gonna live like 40 years. So, like I'm gonna retire with these animals still saying like they love me and then biting me. So it's like, you know, like
and they all look the same, right? So you're good.
Wow, that is offensive.
Whoops.
First of all, they are all very unique individuals. Sorry, I just gotta come back from that. I feel like I just got like slapped across the face. That's fine. Yeah, do all of your kids look the same, Dr. Kip? Do they look all the same? You can't tell them apart.
You want the truth here? Honestly, I'm at the age now where yes, Sydney, they actually do all look the same. They just come and go. And I don't know who the fuck is in the house. It's a kid.
And to be fair, my mom has called me my brother's name for like 32 years. So, you know.
Oh dear. Yeah. Are they even close to similar? Like, are they even?
Yeah. Pretty. They both start with S's, but you know, he's like a dude. So I don't know.
Older or younger?
We're about 18 months apart. So like Irish twins, I think.
Almost Irish twins.
Yeah. Where I forgot where I was going. Oh yeah, my first tattoo.
Oh,
what should I get? Because I'm pretty sure the phases that I'm in now, I'm staying in these phases. Like I am who I'm going to be, to my knowledge, forever. I'm not that girl who does like a different style every year kind of thing anymore.
I think whatever it is, it needs to be in a foreign language that's ancient, and you don't have anybody check it before you put it on.
That's the best part.
Absolutely.
Make sure it's like Chinese or something, because that's the good stuff when you're like, it's peace.
Especially
it's really like, fuck you.
I like surround it with a tribal that has nothing to do with that language. Should I do that too?
Yeah, because I mean, like, and Kip knows this. Like, there are certain people that he and I have interacted with that, you know, put public like PowerPoints out and the Hebrews backwards. You know, don't run it by anybody. That's the key, right?
Okay.
Just go head first.
Absolutely.
You know, can't lose.
Just commit to the bit. Got it.
Commit to the bit.
English words in Hebrew characters, written left to right. Way to go.
Do people do that? Wait, are you telling me that is a thing you've seen?
Oh my God! Of course,
that is the thing I have seen.
Oh,
that is the thing that I have seen. Unfortunately,
okay. Oof.
That's
I got to tell you, it is a mind
Fisher.
fuck when you're sitting there trying to read it and like killing yourself before you realize, oh, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not the problem. You're the problem.
Indeed. Logan Fisher has a good suggestion. Just get the words "I don't know" in any language tattooed. That way you'll tell people what it is without lying. Right? That's.
I'm just gonna get stop reading my skin in like 6 languages.
Good.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I do like the idea of a bird. I like the idea of something
I
like.
wonder why.
That's a mystery. This is good. This is good. That was so good.
That was like, I'm upset that I didn't think of that first because I love birds.
Oh man.
That is
parrot on your ass or something. I don't know.
Guys, I think we
Warn you.
should all just start a podcast. I think that's what we should do. This has been just a blast.
Yeah.
What if I got the entire Epic of Gilgamesh in Comic Sans down my back?
It's going to be in very tiny.
Type would be
font.
very
tiny,
small.
Yes.
Yes.
Like,
Josh
Just
is
use
writing
tablet
a
11.
script.
It's fine.
I was just
Right
gonna say,
now.
pick a scene. Yeah, pick
I
a scene.
wonder
Just
how
one
long
scene.
that would take. Like you might be
So-
in that chair for weeks.
You
Well,
to do
have you
several
seen the t-shirts that are the entire script of the Bee movie on the front of the shirt? They
Oh,
they
wow,
shrank
no.
it down to like such a microscopic. It was
Oh,
a weird
sure.
trend that went around. But there's like these shirts you can buy that are the entire Bee movies like compressed into the front of a shirt. I feel like I could find somebody to do that for the Epic of Gilgamesh that goes like, I'm 5'3". I don't know. Is that enough space between like maybe the bottom of my neck and like down to like my tailbone? I feel like that's enough space, but maybe that's just me.
I'm
Maybe I
starting
can
to
eat
think
some more,
there's
give
a
him some
deeper
more.
meaning though to Jennifer's tat, because Yahweh shows his butt to Moses, and so I'm starting to think you're getting him back for what he did to Moses. That's what I'm thinking you're doing.
Is that the line you're thinking? Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking so because, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But so Sydney, you shouldn't do what we're giving you what not to do.
Yeah, that is.
I am
for sure.
impressionable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that. if you want to. Now's the only time you're getting permission to take advantage of an impressionable person who will do whatever.
Yeah, you should put a bird on you.
Mhm.
Okay.
You should put the name of Yahweh on your ribs, and then Gilgamesh should be behind Yahweh, standing over him, because Yahweh's story borrows from the older Mesopotamian stuff. So like,
Oh,
What
we're
about
getting
this?
very meta here,
Wait,
aren't we?
stay with me. Stay with me. Do you guys remember the Big Dog shirts from like the 90s where you could get
Oh
like
my God.
any movie like poster, but it was redone with the dogs instead? It was like the St. Bernards.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Remember
Oh,
this?
vaguely. Mhm.
What if Yahweh, Gilgamesh as parrots on my ass?
Mhm.
there you go.
Like in the style of Big Dog, but it's parrots instead of St. Bernards.
I'm digging it.
That's clever.
I feel like
And
that,
then
again, I'm
intertwined
5'3".
with the vine.
Intertwined with the Epic
Like-
of Gilgamesh,
Yeah.
maybe. And Demi Lovato lyrics. We can just, for throwback reasons.
Just do all the things, right? Maybe that's what
Go big or go
what
home,
your
right?
tattoo should be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially because I'm getting married in October.
Hmm.
And I just think my back should just everything. My parents should be like, this is not how we raised you. I mean, they're going to say that anyway. So they might as well just like give them, you know what I'm saying? Like give them something to look
Go
at.
big or go home. Mhm.
Yeah. It would be cool though if the people at my wedding were like reading the Epic of Gilgamesh. They're like not paying attention anymore. They're like, this is a
While
great
you're-
story.
Yeah.
Right, while you're saying your vows. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean,
Very
there
nice.
is, I think maybe the elephant in the room, and I know that Kip has just been holding off saying this, but like, I think the bench press this Jesus shirt, you guys remember that?
Yes.
You know?
Is it like
He's got the
spin
cross
or
on his
death or something? Yeah.
the Lord's gym. That's what it was. The
Yes.
Lord's gym. I think just
Oh,
your back, bench press this.
I used to have so many of those shirts.
Did you? Yeah.
I
I believe
I
that.
had
Ooh,
a
self-burn. Those are rare.
man. I had a Mega Life shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Somebody in the
I-
chat, their uncle worked for Big Dog.
Yeah.
There's the company that made those Big Dog
Isn't that fun?
shirts.
Oh,
I used to look for those shirts that like you have like the cross and it's the lifesaver, but it's like a lifeguard kind of version of Jesus type. There's always some cheesy, corny way of like spinning it as you talk about the gym. I used to have a whole collection of those shirts.
You and Kip, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me and Kip were.
Yep.
Yeah.
T-shirt wear.
You know what?
Well,
You know what I should do?
So many.
You know what I should do? I've got it. I think this is it. You guys tell me. Be honest. Those targeted tees. You know, the ones that are like, I was born in August and my girlfriend's crazy and I like to ride motorcycles. You know what I'm talking about? Are none of you from the South?
I am from the South, but I've never seen those.
Oh, the ones they've always got like a skeleton like riding a motorcycle, and it always says like, you know what I'm talking about? And you can get them at like every gas station in America.
Maybe I've just never gotten up close enough to see what it's saying.
They always say, or it's always like the people standing in line at like the help desk at Walmart. You know, it's like I was born in April and my wife's crazy and I got, you know, I've done time. I don't know, function shit. And then I've like, and I'm, you know, blah blah blah, but. Anyway, maybe I should get like a targeted tat is what all I'm saying, where it's like where I should just put all of my personal information on my back so that anybody walking behind me can just like know too much.
Yeah.
It's probably also helpful for your wedding.
You should put the whole panel on you.
I should just get a QR code and then they scan the QR code and it's everything they need to know.
Yes.
Tabs. Duh. I can have any tattoo I want. I can just change the website of the QR code.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
This is
really.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah,
QR code tattoo.
Because
just
if you do change as a person, like you say you have many times,
right.
The tattoo
it's
follows you.
It's the ADHD tattoo. You just invented it.
It is. You heard it here first, ladies and gents.
And you should get it on your right hand or your forehead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That won't attract any attention at all.
None.
You'll be invited to many churches at that point. Guaranteed.
I'll tell you, they stopped inviting me a while ago.
Out. They'll be looking around going, the rapture happened. The rapture happened.
That's right. She is the Antichrist.
It's no, scan it. Just see, you'll read it. It's just no, please.
Then they scan it and there's Satan. And it's like,
and I was like, oh shit, I'm in my atheist phase right now.
Have it just be a website that says you've been left behind. See that?
Yeah.
Just Kirk Cameron's face just pops up and he's like, you sent it.
Oh my gosh. Beautiful.
You did. You got left behind. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to do a QR code and I'll change the website. That way, whatever phase I go through, whatever mood I'm feeling, like I could even link it to like, have you guys ever been to rainymood.com?
Goodness. No.
Oh my goodness.
Look
so
it up right
rainymood.com, you can control the level of the rain sound to like help you sleep. And if you want to, you can pair it with a song. If I'm feeling blue, the QR code just goes to Rainy Mood.
Oh, right.
If I'm feeling sassy, the QR code could go, I don't know, somewhere else. There's a lot of options now, I feel like.
There are some options. I like this.
I don't know. If anybody in the chat has ideas for websites it should go to, remember we're monetized. Keep that in mind. Feel free to put some ideas in the chat, but just remember we're monetized. And, you know, we don't know if there's underage people here. You know what? Don't put any links in the chat, actually. That's a terrible idea. Don't link anything in the chat. I don't know why I said that. So does anybody have anything coming up that they would like to promote to our audiences here? Anything they're publishing or they're appearing on or they're writing or they're presenting or places we can see you?
I get to have another conversation with Godless Granny tomorrow.
I love Godless Granny.
Yeah, she's fun. We had a good time. Yeah, we had a good time talking on the second, and she's like, "Why don't you come back and we'll do some more?" So we're doing that tomorrow on her channel. Yeah,
excellent. So we can catch on Godless Granny tomorrow.
Yeah, 3:30 Central.
Excellent. Yeah. Love that. Oh, I need to stop doing this because somebody on a YouTube channel the other day told me that my finger clapping was obnoxious. So, but maybe I'm just gonna keep doing it anyway.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you do that.
It's like unless they send a super chat. If they send a super chat, I'll stop doing it.
Yep.
Anybody can buy me.
Everybody nods.
Yeah, I am definitely for a price. There is, and it's not a high price.
Being bought, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I will be bought. Yes, absolutely. Okay, great. That's awesome. Derek, Dr. Josh, Dr. Kip.
If I have anything going on, it'll end up probably relating to Josh or Kip or another scholar. So I defer to them. I get enough attention, and I'd rather like give people who are killing it, who are really the minds behind why Myth Vision's successful, is the scholars. And so I defer to Jennifer. I defer to Kip. I defer to Josh. I got an interview we got to do with you, Jennifer. We got to do more. Josh, I've got a ton with you and Kip that I haven't even edited. We got courses with you coming out. So I say listen to them this way. Here. Yeah.
I always like to promote Megan in these moments because she's the host of Bart Ehrman's podcast. So
awesome.
She's a lot nicer to look at.
Who's Bart, by the way?
Yeah.
And where can we find the podcast if somebody's looking for it?
It's just called Misquoting Jesus. But yeah, I mean, if you Google Bart Ehrman podcast, it'll come up.
Perfect.
So I'll take it upon myself then to promote Dr. Josh. He and I, although he had an emergency yesterday, so was unable to make it, but every second week, Dr. Josh and I read Hebrew text together on my channel, which is super fun. It's become, a highlight of my week. So we'll be back doing that soon.
Are you guys on Jennifer's tattoo next week?
Sorry. We're spending like the whole session on it.
Yeah.
Good.
There's a lot there, right? So,
which will be linked via the Ask QR code I'm going to get in 48 hours. So if you happen to be in the Nashville area,
that's on my channel. And then I'm also working away as hard as I can on a book that I'm writing all about Israelite religions. This morning, I was hammering away on my keyboard about the story from Genesis chapter 6 about the sons of God and the daughters of men, and really trying to couch that appropriately within modern metaphors of mafioso culture and the mob.
Cool.
So.
Wow.
I can't wait. Please how do I know when that's published? Because people always ask me about the Nephilim.
Scan the QR code.
Care about the Nephilim.
Wow.
I keep telling
I'm
you.
hoping the book. And it's on the QR code. I'm hoping the book will be ready in March or April. So I'm about a third of the way through.
That's awesome.
I mean, I guess I could say that I'm working on.
You got some of those books. You got some too, right? Yeah.
Working on volume 3 of the Atheist Handbook. I'm working on the chapter now for the formation of the Pentateuch. So we're going to go through the documentary hypothesis, the more recent views.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know. I mean, sure, the four of you are incredibly accomplished.
Show us your tattoo.
But honestly, the last 30 minutes is probably the most valuable work any of you have ever done for all of us, right? I mean, am I wrong? That was the greatest conversation ever. Everybody was freaking loving it. And I finally had to come on and just be like, okay, we have to put a stop to this at some point. Unfortunately, as much as fun as it was, seriously, the four of you, I think, are directly on the front lines of so many of these fights, just for good scholarship, just for actually understanding the topics that we're trying to talk about, and you do it with such genuine interest in what other people are saying, even when they're incredibly wrong. That's what I think is so wonderful, And seriously, I really am bummed out that we have to move on, but I've got to kick all of you off. Yeah, I know.
Yes.
But seriously, thank you all so much for being here and what y'all do. It is what keeps so many of us going and laughing so much in some tough times. So we all learned something really, really cool about Dr. Bird today. And if you take nothing away from this stream, it is that she has Yahweh on her ass.
Yes.
So.
Don't we all, though? I feel like we all,
Yahweh,
in a way,
True,
have
right?
Yahweh
He's
on
always
our
on
ass.
her. He's on
Yeah.
everyone's ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. I am going to finally kick you all out. But seriously, folks, if you don't know these people, you absolutely need to go subscribe and check out all their work. It is amazing. So thank you guys. And
Thanks, guys.
get out of here. Get out of here. get off my screen. I'm kicking you all off. Not you just yet. You know why,
Not me just
Sydney?
yet.
Because
Why?
you have a very important job. You get to help me welcome our next co-host, Stacy.
Stacy!
Oh gosh. She's here with
Stacy!
us. She's muted. That's okay. That's all right. We'll give you just a second.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We got to do it. We got to do it.
Oh
It's not
my
a live stream
gosh.
unless you're muted.
Right? I think everyone has done that at least 15 times.
Real quick, before we bring on our next wonderful guest, what were your thoughts on that last conversation?
That was really deep, intellectual, everything I was expecting from Dr. Kip, Dr. Josh, Jennifer Bird, everyone. I was just, I learned so much from that. And I actually was laughing my head off the entire show.
We were just dying backstage. I was watching everybody. We're all just like rolling in our freaking chairs. Oh, it's amazing.
I feel like you bring these people on to have intellectual conversations, and I'm just like, show me your ass tat.
I absolutely loved that conversation.
I just know how to raise money, guys. I just know how to raise money. I don't know anything about scholarship. I just know what the people want, and they want to see those tattoos.
I think it was a nice kind of just change from the usual, just everyone letting loose and showing their butt tattoos. And I said in the chat, I was like, who knew Derek showing his brand new tattoo would lead to this?
So true. So true.
Yeah,
and that's it's a high bar for the rest of our guests, because again, folks, we've got another like 2 freaking hours of these awesome people coming on. The good news is that our next guest, I know, can meet up to it. We have some wonderful people here. Sydney, you're gone. So get out of here and we'll pass it over. And Stacy, you're going to be running the show for a little bit.
Oh gosh.
So
that was a hard act to follow.
It is. But again, I feel very confident. I know who else is going to be hanging out with us today, and it is some truly great people here for a really good cause, folks. So don't forget tinyurl.com/giftsh2023 and donate and help us achieve nonprofit status. So before we grab those next awesome guests, let's have another Christmas myth that we're gonna debunk. So
bust it.
Myth 2: Jesus was born on December 25th, right? Nope. No one knows for sure when Jesus was born.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey. How is everyone?
So, that is, let me just say, to follow that is absolutely insulting. That
I know. I fully agree, David. we couldn't see each other backstage in the little boxes, but I was laughing so hard.
Yeah.
That was one of the best conversations I think the internet has ever had. So
I only caught the end of that where we're talking about like Jen's got a butt tattoo of Yahweh. Like what? Like I'm so confused. I'm gonna have to go back and watch like the whole thing because I was in the green room, so I didn't get to listen to all of it.
That was awesome. Well, it's so good seeing you, and I have not had the pleasure of meeting you yet. How do you pronounce your name?
Navadia.
That is beautiful.
And thank you. I made that up when I was about 11 years old.
Oh my gosh.
So, yes.
Gorgeous. Awesome.
Thank you.
So
pleased to meet you, Stacy.
Thank you. So if you guys could just give a little introduction of who you are and what you do in the community, just to tell our audience, that would be great. And David, why don't we start with you?
Well, my name is Dave McDonald. I'm just putting my screen on my other monitor, so I'm looking this way.
You want me to start with?
No, I'm good. I've sorted it out. I think it's sorted out. But my name is Dave McDonald. I am the host of Deep Drinks podcast. I'm a former youth pastor, now agnostic atheist, and I interview people about religion, philosophy, and human rights. And that's what I do over the drink of their choice. And sometimes I get very drunk. And funnily enough, Bible scholars always choose hard liquor, and atheists choose tea. It's a real weird thing going on
Yeah, that's hilarious. I love that. And you just did a really big stream last week for your 100th episode. People can go and check that out.
Yeah, we had the Stacey's Mum podcast on, which was the highlight of the show.
I'm sure, but thank you for having me on. That was a great show, by the way.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, awesome. And could you introduce yourself, Navadia?
Hi, I'm Navadia. I am a person who doesn't know how to read calendars, and I'm actually supposed to be on tomorrow morning as well. So
okay,
that's my fault. I read, it's the 16th. Oh, okay, I'm on tomorrow. I'm on the 16th. No, it's the 17th because I don't exist. I'm the same as David. Neither of us exist. We both belong in Australia. So yeah, so you'll also be seeing me tomorrow.
Perfect. Well, you'll also be seeing me tomorrow. So.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
So I am a scientific and advocacy YouTube channel. I've kind of taken a bit of a hiatus the past year or so, but I'm getting back into doing longer form content. So my last 2 videos were around the hour-long mark. I have just come back from holiday, so I'm editing my next video, which is looking to be roughly about the same length as well. So, and the next one will be on how to pick a good scientific journal, which is a video I think everybody should be watching. So,
nice.
Yeah, so that's basically it. And also I can't read calendars.
Okay, I actually thought that was I thought that was an actual thing that I was like, oh, I've never heard of that before. And then you explained to yourself, I was like, okay, is that a real condition? No. Yeah. Okay.
No, it was a mistake.
Do you have a background in Christianity or religion or fundamentalism at all?
I used to be Christian, and then I read the Bible, and then I stopped being a Christian.
Okay.
Generally how it goes, yes. But yeah, I went to a Catholic school, and when I was about 15, everyone was getting confirmed. I was like, I want to get confirmed, so I decided to read the Bible to make sure I knew what I was getting into, and then I left with Christianity, which that's my origin story.
Oh my goodness! So that was when you were quite young.
Yeah.
And whereabouts in Australia are you? I'm wondering if you're close to David at all.
We're fairly close. I'm in Brisbane, so yeah.
I don't know where
that's.
Well, I went down to Brisbane the other day for work. It's like an hour from where I live, or 50 minutes, something like that drive.
Yeah.
There you go.
So pretty close.
Yeah.
By Australian standards.
Perfect. Awesome. So what kinds of things do you guys find that's important to be active in this community and online? Like what's your main focus on just activism? What do you find, David?
Well, I don't know if I would call myself an activist in a way. I think maybe I am. Like I'm probably subconsciously an activist for like, people like the LGBT folks, or like I got I'm really interested in the Ukrainian people and like what they're going through with the Russians invasion, things like that. But in general, I try, because of the nature of Deep Drinks, I try and not be an activist as much anymore. I try and more be someone, I guess. I have to almost be open to be able to get a good interview out of like a religious person. I have to like go in there like, okay, let's see if I can get convinced of the existence of God, or like, well, let's see why you believe. I think it's silly, but let's see what you believe. And I don't let them know that I think it's silly, or sometimes I don't think it's silly. So that's, but yeah, I think it's important because like in general for more atheists and agnostic to be sharing their voices, because as you know, Stacey, like when you're deconstructing, it is fucking terrifying. And sorry if I can't swear, but it is terrifying.
They were swearing in the last half hour, so I don't know.
Okay, cool. But like it's terrifying. And it's like stepping onto an alien planet when you start to deconstruct your faith, and you're like, you don't have anything to hold on to anymore. You don't have the walls to hold on to, and you have to kind of you need guidance. You need like the shamans to go before you, kind of thing. And that's and for me, that was like Aaron Ra, Matt Dillahunty, heaps of different people that I would watch, and that would make me feel better about investigating my beliefs. Seth Andrews, of course.
Yeah.
I did a video ages ago. I think I called it "So You're Going to Be an Atheist," and I did a video on it, and I equated to the loss of religion as a grieving process, and I think that's fairly accurate, because a lot of your support structures is ripped away from you, and then all of a sudden the rose-colored glasses come off, and suddenly you're realizing how destructive the thing that gave you such a lot of love and joy. And it's sort of, you tend to go through a really angry phase. Everybody has. I mean, I went through an angry atheist phase, and I'm a fairly chilled out person. And in that video, I advocated, guys, this is what you're going to go through. Be aware that this is going to be quite destructive if you get into the wrong group of people. Because there are atheists that are proud of never getting out of the angry atheist phase. And they tend to be just as, or even more bigoted towards people who don't agree with atheism, or who are Christian or who are religious, or even just and it's sort of like, that's something I really think the atheist community really needs to start having a deep think about, the way we treat religious people. Because like, how many times have you gone on Twitter and somebody's gone, I think I'm losing my faith, and then all the atheists are like, oh, welcome over, or something, or someone says, my mum just died, please pray for me, and there's retweets of atheists going, God doesn't exist, and it's just like, guys, shut the fuck up. Like, do you think this makes us look good? So I do think we need some more atheist leaders, where it's like, okay, if you're losing your faith, please, come talk to us. We'll help you through. We'll guide you through this process, because we've all been through it, and we want you to make sure you come out of it safe and happy and healthy, and you have a much more positive outlook. Because getting in with toxic groups of people can make your deconstruction even worse, and and these people make us look bad, make atheists look bad.
I don't even like, I might be different to a lot of people, but I don't even care if someone remains religious. If someone comes to me and they're like, oh, I'm struggling. Like, I've had Christian friends come to me and they're like, I'm struggling, or I'm not sure about this. I'm like, oh, well, there are Christian books that could help you like kind of reconcile these things, but I won't point them to things that are like blatantly dishonest, like, young earth creationism or whatever. But but it's not necessarily for me the religion part of things that bothers me, or that I discourage people, not that I don't discourage people from, oh my gosh, my thoughts, but it's not the religion part. It's actually the like the bigotry, the closed-mindedness, the not being able to think critically. Like, I know lots of Christians who, they're like, yeah, look, I don't know what happened, I don't know what did happen, it makes me feel good, cool. Like, but like, obviously science is true and fundamentalism is silly, and you're like, well, I don't know what we have to argue about besides like maybe like epistemological truth or something. But I don't see a lot of danger coming from that personally in society. I think the danger comes from, we'll talk about this, Navadia, in the back room, but like Stephen Crowder, or like Christian nationalism, or like just like fundamentalism, or people not being able to think critically, things like that.
Yeah, and one of the people that I follow on Twitter, and they're actually a friend of mine, we've chatted quite a bit, and she is a very Christian lady, but she is very pro-science, pro-vaccine, pro LGBT. She's just one of the nicest people I've ever met, and her Christian faith just adds to the person who she is.
Right.
And she's just one of the loveliest people alive. And in no way, shape or form would I ever want to take that away from her, because it's something that gives her strength and love. And, and that's something that I think a lot of atheist people don't understand, is that, if something's not hurting you and is actually adding to your life and it treats you well, then, it's like that sort of thing. Like, people put on candles for good luck. Okay.
Right.
Go for it. It's not hurting anyone.
Hurting anyone. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't like, it's when religion gets toxic is when I start to have an issue with it.
Yeah. Well, as far as just being like an atheist, like not being that toxic atheist community, that's kind of what we're here for too with this fundraiser, is to, Skeptic Haven wants to become a nonprofit. That's what they're trying to get the status for, is to just be a really great landing place. Wow, I can't speak today. A really great landing place for people who are coming out of religion, a community hub. So I just wanted to remind everyone to please support the link that's going across your screen. And just that's the whole point of our fundraiser here. And just wanted to thank everyone. I'm not wrapping this up. I'm just reminding that that is what we are here to try and do, is just to be a support network for people, so that they don't run into that toxic like, haha, we told you so type of thing. We want to be a support to people. So that's a really great point. Yeah, because no one likes to have that pointed back at them and feel like an idiot. Because I have to say, like, I wouldn't want to do that to someone. And when I came out, I ended up, I found places like Skeptic Haven just on YouTube, and a lot of other great channels and creators, and made really good friends. And so that's the way it should be. You shouldn't be made to feel bad for your beliefs that you once held. Because I don't know about any of you, but I've sat back and thought about some of the things that I once thought, and you feel silly enough as it is. You don't need angry to continue.
I've told the story. I'm not sure if I've told it here before, but like one of the most impactful moments for me is I went to the World Science Festival in Brisbane. Right? But I went there in 2016, and there was a talk with like 5 faithful and like 1 atheist, and the atheist was AC Grayling, and the faithful were like Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, Catholic, and they were all saying, all the religious people were saying there's no contradiction between their faith and science, and AC Grayling said he disagreed. He said faith starts from a position of believing something without evidence, and science does everything it can to disprove a hypothesis. And he was the only one I agreed with, and I was right on the crux of like starting to question my faith. And I decided at the end to go up and buy his book, and it was like it felt like a profound form of blasphemy to buy a book called The God Argument, which actually had nothing to do with, it was more about secular humanism. But I went and got it signed by him, and I was like rambling, and I told him like, oh, I'm kind of questioning things, and he like stopped the signing, and he looked up at me, and he's like, he asked me how I was doing, and I was like, oh, well, it's hard, right? And then he just kind of talked to me for a little bit and said like he, takes his hat off to me. It's really, it's really hard, and not a lot of people can do it, blah blah blah. And I was like really taken aback by the kindness of this like philosopher to just sit and talk, like stand and talk with me for a little while. And we got a photo. He gave me his email, and then I ducked out of that. But it was like really like that one little act of like someone just listening and just being like, okay, like I know this is hard, but like, have a go, and and see where you end up. It was profound.
Yeah, I love that story. I've heard you tell it a few times, and this is a really quick synopsis of it, but it's such a great story, and just the kindness that he showed you, because it's not an easy thing. And I remember, because my deconversion wasn't that long ago, it was just a couple of years ago, but it's scary. I remember my heart pounding out of my chest, coming across certain things. And I was so scared, like, am I doing something wrong? Am I sinning? And it was terrifying, and it just consumed every thought that I had throughout the entire day. And I was terrified, but it was also exciting at the same time. But then to find, and then you do lose a lot of your community. You lose, I mean, we talk about this all the time because it's a part of what you go through when you start questioning everything. So having a solid community on the other side is so important. So it's great that there are things like the internet, because years ago there wasn't anything like this. You hear about, like, Dan Barker, he deconverted in the 80s, and he wrote a book about it. And who could you talk to back then, unless maybe it kind of came up in conversation and you could sort of understand that maybe someone else was going through it, but you couldn't just like pick up your smartphone and start looking things up and coming across different communities and message boards and find people. So we're so lucky that we can have these platforms to become a part of. And I think that's also why people are starting to deconvert or deconstruct. So is because,
looks like Vardia dropped out.
Yeah, we did. We lost Nervardia and Abby. It was perfect timing because I was getting ready to come on and kick you off anyway. We wanted to just get all the Australians together at once, so we just could get it over with.
The land of milk and honey.
That's right. That's right. I think we have maybe Nervardia back. I don't know. Either way, we do. Yes, good. We do real quick. We'll bring you back on just for a second so we can say thank you so much. No, we understand. You're in a faraway land, a fantasy land, a world that may or may not exist. That's right.
And doesn't even have proper calendars.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. No proper calendars.
No, I don't have proper.
Everything's trying to kill you.
I can stay for a little bit longer. Yeah.
Well,
the weather.
Good news is
I can stay for a little bit longer.
Good news is we're wrapping it up anyway, and we thank you so much. And Nervardia, you're going to be back tomorrow with us for the second day of this awesome fundraiser stream. So we do greatly appreciate that. And thank you both for being here. You guys have definitely helped push this community that you guys have been talking about. This is a really important thing when you step out of a religious belief. And so that's one thing we're really trying to do here at Skeptic Haven is just, foster that community and bring people in that have lost a lot of their friends and family. And I think everyone here is a big part of that. So thank you both so much. Go back to your crazy desert of death animals and whatnot.
And weather.
Right.
We have Friendmas today, so I'm going to go party. So
yeah, good. Go party.
I'm probably just going to sit here and sweat out of every orifice of my body. So
great. Visit Australia, you guys. It's a great place.
It's absolutely amazing. It's so good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just definitely my favorite thing to do is to sweat out of every orifice of my body and get eaten by my pet. So
well, thank you both so much. And I hate to kick you off, but I've got more people to bring on. So thank you both for hanging with us. Stacy.
Yes.
Before we bring on our next guest,
okay.
And we've got three really wonderful people that are about to come on. Some people that I think have all of us watching will know and recognize. They're all big names. Before we do that though, we always love to bust some myths. Are you ready for another Christmas myth to be busted?
Oh yes.
Okay. So we'll bring on those awesome people right after that, folks. But first, check this out.
Myth 3. No, Christmas is not an offensive slam for Jesus. Christmas isn't a slam against Jesus, the Christian Messiah. Far from it. The word Christ in Greek is written Kyriota Sigmatau. The first letter is X, or Chi. Chi is also written as an X in the Roman alphabet, rather than an offensive abbreviation for Christmas.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. How are you? That's perfect segue. Myth for all the mythicists.
Not so much John L.
Not John L. Okay, I'm sorry. I was doing some searching and I wasn't sure if you are necessarily a mythicist or you're just here for the party.
Oh, you talking to me?
Yeah.
I think that it's look if there is a 1% Jesus left after all the myth, if there's 5% left, that's no different than Santa Claus. It really truly is nothing different than Kris Kringle who gave gifts. So yes, and at that point you're a mythicist. Stop saying otherwise. You're a mythicist, right? David?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's so great. I've never met you before, John. It's nice to meet you, but it's great to see you, GE. It's great to see you, David. And thanks
Nice
for
to
being
be here.
here.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So I was thinking before our segment started, I was wondering, you guys were all, like all of us, former Christians. And at one point, we all believed in a literal Jesus. I'd love to know sort of what the tipping point for each of you was to start questioning, was he even real? Was he a myth? Because okay. You can start.
Well, so those were two very different processes for me, because I was an atheist for 16 years before it even crossed my mind to think that there wasn't a Jesus. It literally never occurred to me at all. But when David McDonald was just talking earlier about his, and you all were sharing your deconversion experiences, I was really had a little flashback to when I had mine, and how once you make that break, it's almost like losing your virginity. It's not like you just decided something and now it's different. It's like everything has changed and you can't go back.
Right.
And it seems obvious in hindsight that Christianity is fake when you give yourself that permission to question it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it was for you, GE and John. Well, I sort of know, but maybe you could tell us.
I'd like to know. I'm sure the audience would like to know.
Well, I was just I'm going to be doing 3 debates on the virgin birth this next coming week. One of them is with Capturing Christianity, and I'm pretty excited about some of the things I've been able to articulate. Sometimes it's not really new information, but it's how I articulate it. So I'm pretty excited about that. Can't wait to do it. But what I discovered is that I've always known this. For William Lane Craig, the virgin birth was the very last thing he could accept. In fact, he says it was a stumbling block to his faith. And so and what he decided was if God can create the world, then therefore he could also make a woman pregnant. But anyway, it was the last belief he could accept. Now, for me, it was the first belief, the virgin birth was the first belief that I gave up that led me on the route to complete and utter unbelief, because the virgin birth story is just so wrong. There's no star, the genealogy suck, where were they, when did they go, the genetics don't work out. So I'm pretty excited about that debate. But so what I've said is, and what I'm going to say is that it's the first to go and the last to accept, the virgin birth. And so for me, it was really the virgin birth, because after that, I could no longer trust the Gospel of Matthew or any of the Gospels, or what they said about the resurrection. It's just like there's nothing left in a document once you dismantle that doctrine. So I have been trying to make myself an expert on the virgin birth, because I think that's the gateway drug, if you will, to doubting. That's just me. And so that for me, it worked for me. And so I'm going to press home that same kind of a thing here this coming next week and in the future.
Interesting.
So for me, I was when I lost my faith, I started going to Facebook and engaging in Facebook groups, and I came across a conversation that eventually led to bringing up evidence for Jesus in history, and so that's when I went looking for evidence, and I couldn't find evidence that satisfied me personally at first, and so that's what kind of started me on this sort of I guess adventure of trying to find good arguments and evidence, and that's where I encountered David's book Nailed, and then eventually going further on into the literature, into the more I guess scholarly side of it, like reading papers and everything like that, and I just came out on the other end not being convinced of a historical person existed, just primarily because there's not good evidence or good arguments that seem to convince me actually a guy. So I guess that's where it kind of started for me, was trying to find evidence. I took it for granted. Like I was like, yeah, sure, the dude existed. I was like, well, give me evidence for it. I don't can't find any, and so, I just sort of had to come to a conclusion on it, and that was just I didn't have the kind of evidence I would need to assuredly say Jesus existed.
Yeah.
That's a debate stopper. I've been messing around with philosophy of religion sites all over the place, and they wanted to discuss the attributes of God, this, that, and the other. And but when you bring up evidence, when you bring up the question of objective evidence, that or whether it's Jesus or other things, any person who exists should have evidence for their existence. And so where's the evidence? And when you hammer home on that, the debate is a debate stopper, because all of a sudden you can no longer talk about the attributes of Superman if Superman no longer existed, and there's no evidence for Superman. So I think that's right to do. Focus on the objective evidence. Where is the evidence that God exists, Jesus exists, blah blah blah, and there's nothing left to discuss, and it's no more fun for them. It's not any more fun. What, don't you want to talk about those attributes of Superman? No, no, not really.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And I really am surprised by the kind of arguments that even fellow atheists send my direction, because I can't count the number of times that people have come to me with fabricated information. And what I'm talking about here are like the supposed sources behind the Gospels, and that's one of the major pieces of evidence that's used by a lot of people in order to say, well, yeah, sure, there was a guy that existed, but I don't necessarily dispute the idea that there were sources, but my problem is that we don't know what those sources contained, or if they contained anything that was like firsthand eyewitness evidence. Seems like there's just a lot of assumption that gets piled on, and it's amazing to me that otherwise reasonable people, as far as evidence goes for like God and stuff, are just so quick to accept evidence in this particular area that doesn't exist.
The other weird thing about that is I expect Christians to get upset when we say there was no Jesus. The last thing I expected when I wrote Nailed is how many atheists would come and say, "Oh, this is bullshit. This is pseudo history. This is bad as Holocaust denial or moon landing denial." And the fun is it goes right back to what you said. It's about evidence, and it's like the more we look into the evidence, and the more the reason this debate is even worth having with fellow atheists is that everything we learn in the back and forth on the historicity of Jesus just shows how dodgy what evidence and what sources we do have for him are. And that's why it's not going away either.
Yeah. I was struck by how often Bart Ehrman used the word certainly in his Did Jesus Exist book. I mean, it's like you're projecting, aren't you? I mean, you're just you're trying to make a case that isn't, and you don't use the word certainly so often. I couldn't believe it. I was stunned, in fact, that he would do that. He stepped on himself, there. I think it just undermined his credibility when it came to Jesus altogether. What do you think, David?
Well, I thought it was interesting in his further books, his book since, he seems to step away from some of the things he realized are not as well established as he thought they were. The last book I read of his was Can We Trust the New Testament Gospels? And honestly, it felt like it was a debate between him and two Christians, well, the Christian and the Christian author, editor of the book, basically. And it sounded like everything he was saying is something I could have said. And we were completely on the same page about whether we can trust the gospel. So it's very interesting. You know, who knows, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, maybe maybe there'll be a sea change. Who knows?
It does happen
in Christian history, that's for sure.
So are you mythicist towards like all of the gospels, like or the New Testament, or like with Paul, with everything, or is it just specifically Jesus?
Well, I mean, specifically Jesus. I think there was a Paul. I do think there was a Paul, and I think there's reasons why we know there was a Paul that we don't have for Jesus. John the Baptist, I'm kind of on the fence about. I could see it going either way. If forced to pick, I would say we probably have slightly better evidence for John the Baptist than Jesus. That's where I'd put my money if we had to bet, but it's not an airtight air slam. But the really interesting thing, and this is what the new book I've been working on the last 2.5 years, and I'm almost done with, is talking about how when you look at the backstory of all the top 10 world religions, Muhammad, Moses, Buddha, all these guys, all their backstories are equally dodgy and in the same way. And you hear historians starting to sound like apologists, no matter which of these figures you're talking about. It's fascinating to me. Yeah. And just very recently, in the last couple of years, in fact, last November, in fact, was the biggest bombshell from Jonathan Atler, who's a Tel Aviv archaeologist, who argues that we don't have evidence for Judaism before the mid 3rd century BC, 1,000 years or more younger than it normally said. And this perfectly tracks with other historians that I've been following. And it's just super exciting to me to see that we're on the edge of something so kind of earth-shaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. So would you include Moses in that whole myth thing too? Yeah. I think when you start to like look at them all as a myth, to me, when I kind of even just entertain that idea when I was deconverting, or it was after I deconverted, but I was like, okay, now I can kind of think of it all as a myth. It is kind of intriguing. You know, you don't have to just keep it all in this box. And I listened to a few Richard Carrier talks and stuff, and I was really blown away by some of his arguments that he presented, and I was like, you know, I do see a lot of evidence for the fact that it could all be a myth. Sorry, go ahead.
And again, there's nothing implausible about there just being a dude named Jesus or Moses.
Yeah.
But not the closer we look at him, that's not where the evidence seems to take us.
Right.
And if I'm wrong about that, please, people out there, let me know, and we'll talk later, because I love to be less wrong about things.
Exactly.
Let's say there's someone here who believes there was a Jesus who existed, an atheist who believes there must have been some kind of Jesus that existed or something like that. I wrote a preface to a book with Robert Price on Jesus mythicism, and my preface, I think, was pretty good. It said that look, you might as well be a mythicist, like I said in the opening when we first started talking, because if he does all these miracles and yet you don't believe in the miracles, you're an atheist. You don't believe in the miracles. You know, you might as well just say, chuck it. You know, it doesn't really matter anymore, because the Jesus in the Gospels did not exist. Right. And that's the point. And you should agree, the atheist, agnostic, and others, you should agree with that. The Jesus in the Gospels did not exist, and yet that's how it's portrayed, in the Gospels.
And I love it when Christians say, "Oh, all historians agree there was a Jesus." Like, no, all the secular ones agree in a Jesus that debunks your Jesus. It's like, it's not quite as cut and dry as that.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of have a lot more meaningful conversations with fellow atheists on this point, because it seems to me like fellow secularists out there that adhere to the more historical view of Jesus, we can actually get down to the nitty gritty of the actual evidence, being Paul's works and what other information we can glean from the wider Jewish communities at the time, because when you start arguing about these points with a Christian, it becomes more of a, well, prove to me that the magical version of Jesus isn't real, instead of like actually looking at the historical evidence, where the conversation shifts to, well, convince me magic isn't real. And like that's not, like, to me that's not a very interesting conversation. Like I find a lot more what I find a lot more interesting is when we get down to like, well, what did Paul mean when he said, James, the brother of the Lord, kind of thing. And, arguing with a fellow atheist or secularist in general, I find that you have more meaningful conversations.
For sure. I don't even try to do it with Christians. It's like, it's such a deal breaker or conversation ender. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I myself like to bang my head against the wall. So.
I still have the conversations about magic with Christians, but it's never in the context of, well, let's prove Jesus existed, because then it's like, well, let's just prove that the magical Jesus didn't exist, and that's like the extent of the conversation as far as all that goes. I still love to beat my head against the wall in that way
too. So just before we wrap up our time together, what's some of the things that each of you are working on, and where can people follow you and find you? GE, do you want to start?
Oh yeah, totally. So I'm here on YouTube, mainly, is where I produce a lot of content. I also have been posting pretty regularly to my Facebook page.
Yes, I love your Facebook page. Oh my gosh. Everyone needs to follow. You have the best posts.
Yeah. I see David sharing several of the posts that I put up, so I'm glad people did enjoy that. But I try to post regularly on there, and then as far as stuff that I've got coming up, I mean, I pretty much just sort of grind it out on YouTube, responding to videos that are interesting and everything like that. And speaking of capturing Christianity there, John, I hope that you have a lot of great syllogisms worked up. Just random syllogisms is what you need to throw in for that debate. Just make some shit up, and that'll be good, because Cameron loves crappy syllogisms.
All right. Okay, I know that. I see that all the time. I see that. That's a really good point. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much just grinding it out with any popular YouTube videos or anything like that, and I do a lot of mythicist content, a lot of content concerning historical evidence concerning Christianity and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much what I cover over there.
And people can also see you on the line, because you're also on there.
Oh yes, I'm on the line at least once a month. I'm on the line. It's a call-in show that it exists out there alongside all the other call-in shows, and we do a lot of great stuff over there, and everybody should go and check out those videos. I watch those all the time, because I love listening to just general people call in with their questions about things, and I love getting those questions when I'm on the line. So
I watch a lot of the clips too, just to kind of see what people say and the answers to get. So what about you, David Fitzgerald? What are you working on?
That new book is called Playing God, An Evolutionary History of World Religions. And again, it's been about 2.5 years, 3 years in the works, and it's wrapping up very soon. Hopefully have it out super soon.
Can you give us like a bit of a overview?
It's in 3 parts. It talks about the evolution of all the world religions, starting from like prehistory to a universal imperial stage of religions. It talks about the gods of monotheism, the evolution of monotheism, and how it's such a weird jiggy jag route from polytheism to monotheism. It's not a straight shot at all. And then last is just kicking the tires on all the biographies of all the top 10 or so world religious leaders, and making the argument that, there's a good point being made that maybe none of these guys existed, and all of these religions seem to be created in the same ways, in the same sort of circumstances, by the same sort of people. So super excited about that, and that's coming out.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you, John?
Well, I'm doing articles. I'm writing articles, and I've had several published at Internet Infidels. If you go there and you search for my name, John Loftus, you'll find some that I've written so far, and I have others planned. I'm going to put this virgin birth debate into an article, make it, and I'll publish it there. Aside from that, my plan is to figure out how to do vlogging. You know, I got a green screen, I got some lighting, I got to find the right camera, and so it might take me some time to figure that out. But I want to do some of that. I want to get on online and YouTube blogger. So we'll see if that works out. I mean, it's going to work out.
And if you need any help, John, I know a guy.
You? All right. I'll hook up with you on Facebook. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay. Count it done.
What would your channel, like, what would your content be specifically about?
Well, it'd be some of the same stuff as I'm doing now. I like the idea, and this is what I'm going to start it with. I like the idea of commenting on one of William Lane Craig's videos. You know, he has lots of videos. They come out every day, and I don't know where they're coming from. I guess they're pre-recorded from some of his debates. But then say he has a 5-minute clip about something, you know, and then I'll have him on one side of the screen and me on the other side of the screen. I'll play what he has to say, and then I'll comment on what he has to say. Something like that to start with. So we'll see.
Cool. That's awesome.
Doesn't seem like that's too hard to do. That's too hard to start.
I'm sure. Well, it's basically content handed to you.
Yeah, John, if I can do it, you can do it. Okay.
Oh, you do that? Okay. You do that same thing? Yes. Awesome. Awesome. My wife Sheila wants to say hi.
Hi.
Oh, hi. How are you?
I've been talking to. Good.
You know David.
Yeah. Hi. Where are you at, David?
Northern California now, Bigfoot country.
Oh, okay.
A place called Eureka.
Say hi to Dana.
Will do.
Dana.
Lacey, what about you? What are you up to now?
What am I up to? Oh, thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Well, my mom and I have a podcast, just the two of us, called the Stacy's Mom Podcast. And yeah. And so we have people on where we chat with them about their deconversion, because my mom and I deconverted together, which is quite unusual apparently. And so we do that on Mondays. And I'm also going to be coming back to Skeptic Haven in January on Tuesday nights to host Secular Soapbox again. So that's pretty exciting, because I haven't been doing that for a couple months. So that's what I will be doing.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. So, John, I was going to ask you about your debates. Are they going to be online? Can people watch them, or will they be published after?
Well, I've got Cameron Bertuzzi's Capturing Christianity debate on the 21st. And if you go to Capturing Christianity, he'll probably link to it. It's a 2-hour debate. Darren Slade is going to co-debate with me against a couple of guys. They look really sharp. They look like they're really sharp people. So and I'm going to sandwich that one in between 2 other debates that I'm not going to announce too often because I want to surprise Capturing Christianity with all I've got, rather than like let them know in advance somewhere. So.
Right.
Do you think you'll ever do a debate with William Lane Craig, your former mentor?
I'd like that. Yeah, I'd like that. That's for sure. Yeah. He says that it would be inappropriate. That's the only thing I got out of him. It'd be inappropriate, you know. So,
you to hand him his ass. That's what.
Well, I mean, my books. I mean, like, he doesn't want to acknowledge my existence. I think, and so he's better off not having to deal with it. Whatever.
I know what that's like.
Oh.
Your current existence is an affront to him and a powerful rebuttal to whatever he does.
I think so. I know Paul Copan. He was the president of the Evangelical Philosophical Society, and we've met each other and we've talked a lot each other. But not Bill Craig. He's and Paul Copan, by the way, was a student of William Lane Craig's as well. Paul and I went through the same classes and stuff like that. But Bill, he doesn't really want to let people know that I exist, because then he would have to deal with my books. I've got 13 of them out there. You know, David, you wrote one chapter for me. And so he doesn't want to have, someone might say, well, have you read this book, that book? Can you comment on this and that? So whatever. So we'll see. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here. And just to remind everyone, hi.
No, it's perfect timing. No, keep saying what you're saying, Stacy. It's perfect timing.
I was just going to say, I just want to thank everyone for being here. And also just a reminder to everyone watching that this is a fundraiser to become a nonprofit and be a safe landing space for people coming out of religion. We want to be a great community, and just please help us achieve that goal. So thank you again for being here, everyone. And it was great to see you and meet you. So
yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you all three. Seriously. John Loftus, I am really excited to see you on Captured Christianity. That'll be really
yeah.
cool.
Thank you. We have a 10-minute opener, and I'm cramming a lot in that, and I got a PowerPoint, and so my hour is about the virgin birth. The second hour will be about miracles in general, and Darren Slade will be doing the second hour. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I gotta say, I always hate the argument. I mean, it's not even really an argument. It's just a childish rebuttal to mythicism when the apologist says, yeah, but if you use that standard of evidence, then like Socrates doesn't exist, like Hannibal doesn't exist. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't actually matter. Like whether or not Socrates was real, if the concept is still good, it's good, you know. But if Jesus wasn't real, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for you.
And you know what? And even by ancient standards, that argument doesn't hold up. It's like, no, we have great evidence for these guys. Yeah.
Right.
Jesus wishes he had evidence like that. Yeah. Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Well, seriously, thank you so much, you guys. I hate to kick you off, but I have been given that task to come in and just ruin the party repeatedly. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm gonna be the wet blanket, so that you guys don't have to. But thank you all so much for what you do, and I know everyone here is gonna be looking forward to hearing more from you all. So
thanks so much. Thanks.
All right. Get out of here.
Guys.
Get out of here, all of you.
Bye.
In fact, Stacy, you know what?
What?
You're gonna get out of here too. I'm gonna kick you off in just a second. I know it's a shame. I know, but I have been told that there is somebody pretty cool coming on that's gonna be taking your spot. I don't know if you've heard of this fella, but we've got Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels.
Eric.
What's up, man?
Hi. I might be a fan.
just
I'm a friend.
Okay. You're feeling a bit better about me coming in and taking your spotlight and moving it to somebody else. Is that
of course? Eric is wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Stacy, for being here. We are glad always to have you on, and I know everybody in the Skeptic Haven community is excited to be seeing you back on the show regularly. So we all missed you.
I love you guys.
But with all those nice words, get out of here.
Bye.
Hey, man, what's up?
Pretty good. I'm a little nervous. Stacy left just such a high bar to clear. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to. I'm like, you guys peaked early in this stream.
I don't know. I think the next half of this is going to be awesome. I think we've got another 2 hours jam packed with some freaking awesome guests.
Yeah.
And you're a great co-host to have, man. You're the perfect person to bring on these next three people. I think they have brought a lot to this community over their time of doing stuff, and I'm excited to have them on. But before we do that, one of the things we love here at Skeptic Haven, other than just providing a safe space for people that are leaving religion and losing that community, one thing we really love is talking about wrong things that people say. And unfortunately, Eric, people have said a lot of wrong things for a long time, haven't they?
Yeah, it's kind of a hallmark of humanity is saying wrong things.
Yep, it happens all too often. And so we love to debunk some myths. So I am going to play another Christmas myth, and then we are going to bring on our wonderful guests. So check out this myth and maybe learn a thing or two.
Myth 4. Three kings didn't visit Jesus shortly after his birth. Gaspar, Melchior, and Balthasar, third kings from the east, are said to have traveled a long way to see baby Jesus, following a bright star and carrying gifts of gold, myrrh, frankincense. But magi are wise men, not kings. Further, they came when he was a young child, not a baby.
Laying down some truth. Hey everyone, how are we all doing tonight?
This morning.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly introduce myself. I'm here for the next hour, but this hour is not about me. It's about you guys. Hey, everyone who's watching. My name is Eric. I run a small channel called Skeptics and Scoundrels. I poke in every once in a while to help out with Skeptic Haven, which I think is a great channel. They're doing some really good work, and I fully support them in their efforts to become a full nonprofit, going after their 501(c). So I'll be shilling that a little bit more later on, but just kind of getting that out of the way so I don't forget. And I got three amazing guests here. I've researched all three of you before this segment. James, I've actually watched some of your content before in the past, namely your streams with Nathan Ormond of Digital Gnosis fame. And you guys have some long conversations there that are very deep and entertaining. And also, not to gush on you too much, but I loved your breakdown of this Catholic exorcist's bullshit. His name Richard Gallagher, and his interview with Sean McDowell, I think it was. So I really was entertained by that. So I'm kind of familiar with you, and Bryce and Russell, I'm looking forward to getting to know you a bit more over this next 30 minutes we have, or hopefully 30 minutes. We're a little late right now, but so let's just go around the table. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys are, your backgrounds in, and we'll go into maybe some questions. So we'll go clockwise. Bryce Aroni, take it away.
Well, some of the audience here might be familiar with me. I am a former regular host at Skeptic Haven, and then I occasionally come back. So this is my first time back in a while. I've been moving around a lot. I haven't really been too active on social media, but I'm planning on resurrecting that. I also did my own kind of YouTube show with one of our producers, Wes, The Bryce is Right. And I did that for about 1.5 years, and that was fun. And I may be resurrecting that as well. But yeah, I like interviewing people on all kinds of things, but mostly related to skepticism, humanism, atheism, and I've had James on before, like way back in the day, and so this is just like kind of coming home for me, and I definitely wanted to participate in the fundraiser. Whenever Wes hits me up with like, hey, we got a fundraiser going on, we're going to have all of these people from the community, then I'm usually pretty excited to participate because I see a bunch of familiar faces that I get to interact with and engage with. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Very cool. It's awesome to have you here. Dr. Russell Blackford, please introduce yourself.
You don't have to worry too much about the doctor bit, but yeah. Hi, I'm Russell Blackford.
I'll put it in there once. I'll put it in there once just so everyone knows.
I'm a philosopher and a writer from Australia. As you can probably tell from my accent, this is Australia Hour, as we'll find out because James is also Australian. I'm the author or editor or co-author or co-editor of quite a few books by now. Some people in the audience will probably know the book that I co-edited with my friend Uday Shuklank, 50 Voices of Disbelief, which is 50 essays by high-profile atheists on why they are atheists. So we have all sorts of people involved in that book: Peter Singer, Michael Shermer, all sorts of high-profile people. And a few years later, Udo and I followed up with this book, 50 Great Myths About Atheism, which again some of you may know. If you don't, you know where to buy it. Any good place where you buy your books. I don't know. I'm obviously the oldest person here, so there's a lot of things that have happened in my life. For relevant purposes today, I'm a regular. I write a regular column for Free Inquiry, with which I've been associated for a long time, and that'll probably do for now.
Well, great. Thank you, Russell. Really appreciate that intro. And finally, James, please tell us about yourself.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on. I was happy to be invited. I live in Melbourne, Australia. I'm doing a PhD in cognitive neuroscience. And when I have time, I do stuff on YouTube. So I do the Bad Apologetic series with Digital Gnosis, and also do some videos on my own channel, which is just under my name, if you're interested in that. I also published a book a few years ago called Unreasonable Faith, where I respond to the apologetic of William Lane Craig. So yeah, that's one of my interests.
Okay, great. So I noticed a bit of a common theme with our guests here today, and me to a limited extent. And that's, we have a bit of expertise here in philosophy. I know, James, you and Nathan, you talk a lot of philosophy on your channel. Russell, you have a PhD in philosophy, if I did my research correctly. Bryce, you described yourself as a jack of all trades in the chat before we got on the live here, and I'm kind of in the same boat as well. I have a degree in computer science, but I'm very much interested in philosophy, especially after my deconversion 15 years ago. My interest in those subjects has increased since then. So I was thinking about that earlier, and it kind of raised the question, or my thinking about how our backgrounds affected our desire to study these things, or to look into these things, or to learn more about them, and vice versa after we've crossed that line and learned more about it, how it helps us kind of reflect back upon our pasts. So I should probably maybe start out first. Who was born religious here? Because I definitely was.
Yeah.
James?
I mean, I would never use the expression I was born religious, but I was certainly indoctrinated into
raised religious.
I was raised.
I assume that's what you meant. Yeah,
that's a great distinction. I misspoke there. Born into a religious family, raised in a religion, indoctrinated. Yeah, that's a thank you for clarifying
I
that.
wouldn't say in my case that I was indoctrinated. I was born into a slightly religious family, but I became involved with a very religious peer group when I was a teenager. So I was involved in evangelical Christianity, and indeed, at the time when I abandoned Christianity, let's say, I was actually in the lofty position of deputy president of the local chapter at my university of an organisation called the Evangelical Union. I never made even loftier heights of president, because it was actually during that year that I couldn't make it add up anymore.
Yeah.
But I came to unbelief from belief, which is, I guess, what you're really kind of driving at here.
That is kind of the thrust of my question there. And that's a great distinction to make, that not necessarily all religions are indoctrination based. Some can be very light, and some can be very open and allowing people to explore different questions, explore different fields of study without those types of limitations. I was born as a Jehovah's Witness, so Christian cult shuns college, higher education, shuns philosophy, shuns questioning, keeping those types of thoughts and interests suppressed in order to, maintain the integrity of the message they're trying to push on you. And everyone's perspectives are different on that. And one of the reasons why I mentioned like deconverting 15 years ago for me and then becoming interested in philosophy is because I realized I was denied the opportunity to learn these things back when I was young. So I want to take advantage of that now that I'm kind of more open-minded and free to think. And I have that intellectual agility. I've kind of gained that after shedding my religion and being able to study all these things. It made me realize that despite my oppressive upbringing in that kind of, religious environment, it actually amplified a desire to learn after I left. I wanted to see if anybody had that similar experience where you kind of hit a point in your life where you're like, whoa, I've missed out on a lot. I've missed out on a lot of studying and learning, and I'm missing opportunities the longer I wait, and maybe pick up a drive to learn more. Has anybody experienced that? Or essentially in general, what's your reflections on where you've come from and how it's influenced where you are now and how it drives you forward? Bryce, please go first.
Well, for me, it actually started before I deconverted, so to speak. It was really during the deconstruction process that I realized that I was curious about other belief systems, other schools of thought, And I served in the military, and so I was constantly meeting new people with different backgrounds and different walks of life and different religions as well. And and being deployed in Middle Eastern countries with a different predominant religion. And I was always curious about that because Christianity doesn't do a very good job of accurately describing other belief systems, other schools of thoughts. And, it's all biased, it's all couched through the lens of Christianity. But when interacting with people, and even, by the way, within Christianity, you mentioned being a former Jehovah's Witness, which is very different from the type of Christianity I was in, which is probably different from what Russell was in. And just having those sorts of interactions and realizing that people believe basically what they've been taught made me kind of want to reach out and figure out, are any of us right? Do I have a reason to believe that I'm right? What do other people believe? What do they think? And so that kind of started it for me. And then, of course, after I realized that I was an atheist, is around the same time I started. I enrolled in my academic program. I'm a psychology major, and so part of psychology, of course, philosophy, the philosophy of psychology. Psychology begins with philosophy, and so that really kind of opened my eyes to where religious ideas came from, how religion intersects with culture, how it kind of shapes culture in different ways. And so that was my interest in getting into philosophy, but specifically how it relates to psychology, the philosophy of the mind, the study of consciousness, and breaking down this idea of the soul and all that stuff that I used to believe in and then realized I didn't have good reasons to believe in at this point. And so that was kind of my interest in it. The only thing that I'm sure of is that I exist, and then I take it, I have certain presuppositions that I exist in a shared reality with other minds. I think, therefore I am, harkening back to Descartes, but that's about it. And so everything else is a presupposition, and I build on my beliefs using rationalism, logic, and empiricism. And I think that's about the best that I can go on. Faith doesn't really play a role anymore because, as Matt Dillahunty is very famous for saying, faith is not a reliable path to truth. I learned that after the fact. So yeah, so my interest in philosophy is very, I would say, not superficial, but it is foundational in my interest in psychology. And so I'm by no means an expert. I have a degree in psychology. I could talk a little bit about that, but I'm not an expert in anything. I just like studying the mind. I like the philosophy of mind and just the history of religion and belief systems. So yeah, I think I've talked a lot. So
yeah, no, thank you for that info dump. I really appreciate it. And I liked your observation that that when you're under the umbrella of Christianity, you're viewing the world and these other concepts through the lens of Christianity. And in that lens of Christianity, probably universally is Christianity is true no matter what. And that can affect the way you view other competing ideas or ideas that are contrary to your own. It may put you in a position where you're prematurely dismissing other ideas simply because it doesn't conform to the Christian worldview or the Christian beliefs that you were taught. So I liked that observation.
You don't realize that, by the way, until you start meeting Muslims who think exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Or different kinds of Christians that are a different version of Christianity that think exactly the same way. So
that is my favorite. One of my favorite straight epistemology approaches is the outsider test of faith. Basically, just take what the religious Christian or the religious person is saying that there's their reasons for believing, and just simply apply it to a different God and see how well it holds up. Great. So I have an extreme Christian background, which limited me quite a bit. Bryce, it seems like you weren't as extreme. And now we're going to go to Russell, who had a very, according to him, light and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but not as an intense Christian experience as we had growing up. So Russell, please tell us your insights on how.
Well, I was brought up in the Anglican Church, which is a fairly mild sort of organization. That's the Episcopalian Church, right, in US terms. So I was not brought up with the kind of extreme indoctrination and dogmatism and even isolation from ideas that you have experienced, Eric, from what I know about the Jehovah's Witnesses and from what you've told me. So, I wasn't really kept away from learning about the world. I was fascinated as a little kid by dinosaurs and by ancient history and by the planets and all sorts of stuff. I was fascinated generally by science and history, all that. I said that I came to unbelief from belief, but even that's not the complete story, because even when I was at primary school, I kind of worked out this idea that Christianity is really the mythology of our time. I wouldn't have perhaps put it quite that way at primary school, but I had a thought very like that, because among those things I was interested in, like dinosaurs, I was interested in systems of mythology. I was fascinated by Greek and Norse mythology and by other religious systems, by learning about Hinduism and Buddhism and whatever I could. And I just came to the conclusion that, okay, these other cultures historically across the world have their views that we don't accept. Well, down the track, Christianity will be looked at, 100 years' time, 1,000 years' time, or however long it takes, as just the mythology of our era and time. So I had this kind of, not born again or born again as a non-religious person. Even in primary school, it was a little bit later on in early high school that I had a full-on born again experience and became, born again Christian and involved in, the evangelical movement, etc., etc. So then I had the much more intense experience of Christianity, not really coming from my family. But I was interested in philosophy, and I was still interested in all those things that I mentioned. And I continued to worry about it, or worry at it, because I kept finding that didn't add up for me. For all sorts of reasons, philosophical reasons such as the problem of evil, issues such as how you can make, concepts of goodness and morality really be driven by a religious viewpoint. All in all, I had, another kind of a detransition experience, whatever you want to call it, when I was about 19 or 20, and I've never changed my mind since. But I retain a hunger to find out about all sorts of things. Since that time, I've done a law degree to add to my arts degree. I had done a PhD in English literature when I was young. I've since then done a second PhD in philosophy. And I continue to be interested in those areas and to want to read about them, study them, and to write about them. And and that goes on. That's what I do these days. I read things, I write things, try to make some kind of contribution to the culture, and I guess provide some sort of resource for people.
Well, that's amazing. It sounds like you're using your time here very efficiently and effectively, and just following that passion. Because you've written multiple books. According to your background, you're also a science fiction writer, so I'm sure that's informed your ability to effectively write books on atheism. And your book, 50 Great Myths About Atheism, which clears up misconceptions and such around the whole kind of socially taboo concept of not believing a God exists. And I think that's all great. And I appreciated your comment there earlier when you said that you had a born again experience, but it was like later on in your life, it was kind of more self-driven. It was, you were the source of the drive to have that experience. And then you eventually deconverted. I had a similar experience too, where, I was, born in that religion, indoctrinated, kind of got a little laxed in my late teens. And then in my 20s, I was like, I got to pull myself up my bootstraps, and I need to get good for God, and I need to keep on doing all these things. Right. I was kind of more of a self-driven phase 2 of my religious career. And then that eventually fizzled out. And then, my late 20s, I deconverted completely. And like you, I haven't necessarily changed my position on God since, but I've definitely opened myself to new ideas and more honest analysis of what religion is saying, what other religions are saying, what non-religious people are saying. And I'm going off of, what makes sense, with my worldview, my epistemology. Is the process that I'm using, as Bryce was mentioning earlier, the process that I'm using, are my arguments valid and sound? Can my reasons for believing be applied to other things that I don't necessarily believe, and which might indicate a contradiction or a problem and such? I appreciated your comment on that, how, there's multiple phases in your development as you go until finally, like you and me, we hit a point. Now it's like, okay, wait, we're now in a pretty good spot here. And we don't stay here because we're comfortable. We stay here because nothing's yet convinced us to move out of this position of non-belief. Nothing's convinced us to move into a new position of belief in some other religion, because we have much more stringent and disciplined requirements for adopting belief. So I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. And then moving on to James. James, you are, as you mentioned earlier, you were working on your PhD in neuroscience. Tell us a little bit about your background, kind of how did your background affect your drive to go into this field and do this field of study?
I don't know. Well, maybe my background had some influence. So I was raised as a Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was pretty devout and active in that for 20 years, as was the rest of my family. So Mormonism is a pretty demanding religion, as some people may know. And since a young age, I was quite interested in science and philosophy, maybe philosophy a little bit later in my teens, though I didn't really know very much about particularly philosophy, partly because, well, it's interesting. In Mormonism, education is valued, but it's, at least when I was around, I don't think it's changed much. It's sort of constrained by the teachings of the church. So there's sort of certain things that you're not really you're not supposed to read what they call anti-Mormon literature, which is anything that's critical of the church. Certain teachings of science like evolution, or even maybe like the origins of the universe or certain other things, it's just maybe not explicitly forbidden, but it's a bit taboo, and sort of you feel a bit awkward about that because you're like, oh, I don't know if this is what the church teaches about this, and so you just sort of, there's a bit of a discouragement. At least a lot of people feel that, and so I felt that as well. And I felt particularly in Sunday school and other religious classes, because I went to seminary as well, that there is nominally an encouragement for discussion, but it's often very formulaic. At least this was my experience, that there's sort of certain things that you're supposed to say, and the analysis is always quite superficial. And I found that frustrating in my later years in participating in the church. This would have been when I was like 17, 18, 19. And when I got back from serving a mission, I served a bit shorter than the 2 years, but I did serve for a time in New Zealand. When I got back from that, it was sort of interesting. I wanted to really go the extra mile with preparing for teaching. It was some class or whatever. I don't remember specifically what it was. And in looking for extra information, I stumbled across a website which contained some information about Joseph Smith, which I hadn't heard before. I'm like, oh, what's this about? And I started reading more, and then I learned about a bunch of issues with the church history and changes in teachings and the Book of Mormon, historical issues, and a variety of things which led me away from the faith ultimately. And so after that, I became an atheist. But I retained if anything, a strengthened interest in religion and in comparative religion, so different traditions, because I knew very little about other religious beliefs. This was something also that I became interested in during my time as a Mormon, actually, because Mormons teach that all, or at least like most religions, are kind of reflections of God's teaching, that they contain elements of the truth, but they don't have like the whole truth. Only the Mormon church has that.
Yeah.
And that I thought was interesting because there wasn't really much detail given in that. And I was like, well, what are the other beliefs? Like, what do they teach? And how does that fit like historically in God's plan and things like that? And things like that got me interested, but I didn't really learn much more until afterwards. And so, I think that the point is my upbringing definitely had a big influence on my curiosity, I think, and my interest in like religion and philosophy. But I wasn't really able to, I think, explore or develop that until I left that tradition, because I think it was a very intellectually constraining environment.
Yeah. As you mentioned earlier, Mormons, they don't necessarily shun or discourage higher education like the Witnesses do. In fact, Mormons have their own university, Brigham University in Utah, which I'm sure the curriculum is heavily influenced using the lens of Mormonism. I liked your comment about how, when university, they at least to some degree value science, they value empiricism and the scientific process, until it brushes up against the beliefs and starts to conflict with the beliefs, like when you mentioned with the Big Bang and evolution and other kind of more deep time type topics, like where we came from and such. And the contention there, the cognitive dissonance that probably generates in a lot of individuals as they kind of see that.
Yeah, because the Mormon Church doesn't even have an official position on those, as far as I know, but it's more of a feeling of almost self-censorship or self-limitation that a lot of members feel like, because I think most Mormons believe in a fairly literal reading of Genesis. And that's generally kind of encouraged in the education, at least that I received. It's not like, it's different to other traditions where they'll explicitly say, evolution is wrong and creationism is right, and that sort of thing. I didn't have any of that. It's just sort of taught at face value and not discussed further. So it's there's sort of the plausible deniability there, because they don't explicitly deny anything, right? Of course, other people's experiences may vary, but that's the sense that I got from.
Isn't the focus on the Book of Mormon rather than the Bible anyway?
To an extent. So in seminary, I did 4 years of seminary. It's taught like as an early morning class before school when I was in high school. And in those 4 years, we did one on the Old Testament, one on the New Testament, one on the Book of Mormon, and then one on some other scriptures that the Mormons have. So like half of it was on the Bible, right? And likewise in Sunday school and other things, they sort of rotate the different, we call them standard works, right? The Bible plus the Book of Mormon plus some other stuff. And so there's a tendency to focus a lot on the Book of Mormon. It's viewed as the most true of the scriptures, because there's thought to be a potential like some corruptions in the Bible. But the Bible is still believed and very heavily relied on. And also the Book of Mormon doesn't really say anything about creation, or very little about that. And so in terms of how that impacts on it, that appeals are still through the Bible predominantly. But yeah, there is a lot of emphasis on the Book of Mormon.
Great. Well, SR is back, so that means our time here is up. So if you permit us maybe another 45 seconds, we'll let Bryce, Russell, and James plug whatever projects they're doing, and then we'll move on.
I'm not doing a project, and I don't foresee anything within the next month, but I do plan on becoming re-engaged in the next year after the new year. And so when I have something, I'll get more specific on that. Can I just say, though, that I really appreciate the diversity of the panel in terms of the diversity of background, having, a former Jehovah's Witness, a former Mormon, a former Anglican, non-denominational, just comparing and contrasting the different backgrounds and how we all got here, different nationalities. I think that that's great for this, and just to kind of shed light on anybody who may be in the deconstruction process right now. I think that that's very helpful. And by the way, Eric, you have a great voice and a natural way of speaking for this.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that, because I always liken my voice to driving with the parking brake on. That's how I feel when I'm speaking. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Russell, please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I have a new book out, which is not about atheism or humanism, but it's a kind of defense of liberal thought. Liberal not in the American sense particularly, but liberal in the sense of, freedom of speech, individual freedom, toleration of difference, toleration of people who might have different ideas. And, why liberalism in that sense seems to have gone out of fashion on both the political right and the political left. It was probably always out of fashion on the political right. But I said the political left has drifted that way too. That's how I see it. So that's called How We Became Post-Liberal, how we got into this mess as I see it. Sequel to an earlier book I wrote called The Tyranny of Opinion, which is a phrase from John Stuart Mill. So at the moment, that book is just out in the US. It's not even out in Australia yet. It'll be out next month in Australia, if there's any Australian viewers. And right now, I'm just focused on a bit of marketing of that, apart from straight things that come my way, such as being on this show, which I'm very grateful for. I've enjoyed the conversation and hearing a little bit more about some people with varied backgrounds. So thanks again.
Well, thank you very much, Russell. And James, I saw you grab a book off your shelf. I'm sure it's gonna be part of
your
outro.
I thought I'd just plug my book on reasonable faith, how William Lane Craig overstates the case for Christianity. It's a few years old now, but I think it's still a very compact and pretty rigorous response to Craig's apologetic, and also arguments that are pretty widely used by a lot of the conservative evangelical apologists these days. So if that's something you're interested in, check that out. I'm also working on another book, which probably won't be finished for a couple of years yet, but it'll be sort of a defense of philosophical naturalism. So rather than a critique, it's more of a defense of an alternate kind of perspective that I come from. So that's something I'm hoping to get a bit more time for over the holidays. Plus, I do streams periodically on my channel and Digital Gnosis under the Bad Apologetics label. So you can also check those out. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to meet Russell and see Bryce again. And yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, it was a true pleasure, guys. Thank you very much. And SR.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you all three for being here. And again, I know I come in and I say all these nice words and then I just kick everybody out so unceremoniously. But Bryce and James, I always get excited whenever I see your name attached to the title of a video. Whenever I see, talking about whatever with Bryce Aroni or James Voter, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know it's going to be a good show. And Russell, you have decades worth of publication, and I am blown away that you are not on more shows. So I'm not going to hold you to it right now and make you commit to anything, but we are absolutely going to have you on more often, man, if you are interested.
Okay, I'd love to do that.
You've got a lot of freaking stuff. And the fact that you are not more well known in this community is an absolute shame, possibly a cardinal sin. But I don't know. We'll figure that out. But seriously, thank you guys so much for being here. It means quite a lot to us. And all three of you are wonderful, wonderful voices. And again, we just need to hear more from all of you. And seriously, with those nice things, I am now going to very meanly kick you all off screen. So thank you so much once again. And we will just continue rolling through our wonderful lists of guests. We do have a couple of awesome people that are about to come on. But, Eric, before we bring them on, we always want to just shout out a Merry Mythmas to everybody out there. And so we've got just a special little shot here from Skeptic Haven. Just send in those love vibes to everyone out there in this time of skepticism and questioning, right? That's what this season is about, right? It's about questioning things. So
I think so. How else are you going to wage a war on Christmas if you don't ask questions?
That's right. And we are winning that war. And these next three guests are very much in that fight. So let's play this Mythmas shout out, and we'll bring on those wonderful people.
Hey, happy Mythmas.
Happy Mythmas indeed. How's everyone here doing?
Great.
Good. Great. Well, I got to really quickly state the purpose of this whole stream here today one more time. Skeptic Haven's going for a 501c3 charity status. So if anybody out there is able and willing to donate, there's Patreon, there's GoFundMe, there's Super Chats. Just look in the chat for all those links. And I did my promise there, SR. I shielded for you, so we can move on to the conversation now. So yeah, I'm glad everyone here is doing really well. I just found out, I was just reading up a little bit about Mark and Ann, your sort of a YouTube channel and your efforts and your work over there. Captain Dadpool, I'm already familiar with your work. I'm a subscriber to your channel. So let's just kind of go around the circle here and talk about what you're currently doing, what you are interested in focusing on your content, and kind of what your plans for the future are. So Dadpool, please take it away.
Yeah, I'm Captain Dadpool. I'm best known on TikTok. I'm a former evangelical Christian. I was charismatic Pentecostal or Assemblies of God for 15 years. And I went to Bible college because I wanted to be a Bible scholar or a pastor. I wasn't really sure. And my education ultimately led me to deconstructing from Christianity and ultimately becoming an atheist. So now I make videos on TikTok, just answering questions about my knowledge of the Bible and the history surrounding that time. I also have a YouTube channel where I interview scholars in various fields. Bart Ehrman, James Tabor, Dr. Kip Davis, Alexiana Fry. The list goes on and on. So that's what I got going on. I'm on kind of a bit of a hiatus on my YouTube channel at the moment, but I got something going on tonight. I have a charity event going on for Americans United, and I've got a bunch of other scholars coming on to play Dungeons and Dragons for a few hours.
Oh, fun.
Very
so
cool.
Immediately after this, that's what I'll be doing.
Whenever somebody mentions Dungeons and Dragons, I have to brag about the maps I made about 5 years ago. If you're interested, I'll show them to you. I made them in a program called Incarnate, and I'm quite proud of them. So I can always share those with you if you want to see them later on. But that's just me geeking out.
Sure.
Let's continue on. Ann and Mark, I understand you guys come as a pair, so you want to just go into who you are and what you do. And
Mark, why don't you talk about what the channel is about, and then I'll share a little bit about what we've been working on lately.
Sure. So we started a positive. Hey, hi everyone. I'm Mark Peralta. We started about a year ago, a positive mind, and we sort of went on a journey of discovery of what would work for us, what we enjoy doing. And it seems like we've done a lot of response videos to apologists. We've addressed common and really important misconceptions about the Bible, misinterpretations. Basically, the whole house of cards, it's crumbling down, and we're trying to knock one card at a time, so to speak. And so, that's what we do. I'm a former evangelical pastor, went to seminary. I think that I learned my way out of the doctrine and have deconverted over the last 3 years or so. And very, very happy to have found this community and to, be a part of it. So it's been quite the ride.
Yes, and I love that we have this tool. We get to know other people in the community and learn what everybody else is doing. So lately, our last episode, well, I guess we've done a few lately, but we recently did an episode on circumcision. We did a response video to debate between Bart Ehrman and Justin Bass, apologist Justin Bass. And then coming soon, our next episode is going to be about Krampus. So that's something we're looking forward to doing.
you should probably intersplice clips of the movie Krampus in with that to really like hook into that pop culture aspect of it. That's great.
Exactly.
So all four of us here, we are all content generators. We all, put ourselves out there. We, something kind of motivated us at some point in the past to say, hey, you know what? I'm reflecting back on my own journey. I feel like I'm comfortable and secure in my positions and my beliefs and my processes. I want to go share that with others, or I want to test those against other people and their ideas. That was kind of a thing that kind of just, I deconverted 15 years ago, but I only started my YouTube channel a year ago. It wasn't until 14 years after I deconverted, something in my brain went pop. I'm like, wait, I'm going to share my thoughts on this. And which is kind of a difficult thing for me to do because I'm a bit of an introvert. I have insecurities. I have imposter syndrome constantly. So getting myself out there has always been really challenging. I think that's maybe one of the reasons why I want to do it, is because it is difficult. Dadpool, what was your process? What was your motivation to start what you're doing now, especially with your ex-Christian, college-educated pastor background and your eventual deconversion that was caused by that background? What was your primary motivation for doing this, and kind of what are you seeking to do with your channel ultimately?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of a similar story. I downloaded TikTok during the pandemic. When that happened, I have 4 kids, and you'll probably hear them in the background. I apologize. But at the time, I had like 1 in school and 3 were in daycare. When COVID hit, those were all canceled. So I had to quit my job. My wife kept working, and I stayed home with him all the time. So I was bored, losing my mind. So I downloaded this TikTok app. I heard everybody talking about, and eventually I started making videos, just goofing around, nothing crazy, serious. And one day I responded to a video of a pastor asking those who deconstructed why. So I responded, and that video went viral. And I wasn't Was not expecting that. I woke up the next morning and saw my notifications were like off the charts. I was like, this is a glitch, right? This is the app is broken or something. But no, like that got a lot of attention, and I had a lot of people commenting and a lot of people asking questions. Because for those who don't know, I deconstructed after graduating from Bible college. So I learned a lot about the Bible and the history, where it came from, the history between the 1st and 5th century that led us to kind of where we are today. So I had a lot of people asking questions about that. And I was like questions about the Bible, like you wouldn't expect, like other atheists or people who are like working through that process. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this passage, this period in history? I was like, yeah, I can answer that. So I would just make videos responding to those questions. And I just kept doing that. And my account kept growing and growing. And here we are today. And eventually I started a YouTube channel interviewing scholars. And yeah, here we are today.
Awesome. Did you did you experience a great deal of anxiety once you saw that viral video taking off and you were suddenly getting like a lot of attention? Was there yeah.
I remember yelling at my wife. She was still upstairs at the time when I checked my notifications. It was like, babe, I think I did an internet. I don't know.
It's like,
is this what happens? I didn't.
And at that point, you don't know if it's a good or
was not
bad
trying
thing
to-
you did to the internet. Yeah, he's like you're kind of unsure. Like what impact did it just make? Am I being generally liked or disliked, or is it in the middle? Similar experience for me
That's
when I started.
That's the weird thing about like TikTok. Like when it comes to like YouTube or Twitch, you have to like try and put in the effort to gain followers. With TikTok, it'll just happen. And you won't expect it. And then you're just kind of thrust into this position and you're like, oh my God. So you were talking about imposter syndrome earlier. Like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, why are these people asking me these questions? I guess I can answer them. But I've been keeping at it for a few years and it's been doing good.
My experience is similar when I started my channel. The first month or so, it was like maybe one subscriber every 2 days. And every night I go to bed, I look at my subscriber count and go, oh, I got a subscriber. Yay. All right. And then just one morning I woke up early January and I had 500 subscribers. And I was like, what just happened? And instantly anxiety goes through the roof.
Yeah.
While I started investigating what happened. And
people are actually listening to me. That's weird.
Like I'm actually saying something people like. I didn't expect this. Like I didn't think this was something that people would want to hear me talk about. So no, that's great. I have some kind of similar experiences with that. And then same question to you, Mark and Ann. What drove you to start your channel, and what the direction you want to go in, and kind of where do you ultimately want to see it end up?
Yeah, so like for me personally, when I first went out to seminary while I was a believer, I wanted to either be a professor, an academic. I settled with a pastor, associate pastor degree. I'm not a degree. Sorry, I've had a long day. It's been crazy. So right after I graduated seminary, I took a job as a pastor, an associate pastor at a church, and then within a few years, I deconstructed. And so for me, and I never really cared to, got really busy with life and other things, didn't really pursue a PhD. So I want to fulfill that teaching passion of mine that I've always had since I was a little kid. And so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect for me is helping others deconstruct. And I feel like religions such as, the one that I come from, my religious Christian context, there's a lot to unpack and there's a lot to learn. And so I want to try to do the best I can to communicate and, help others find their way out of this mess. And like I did. And so those are my two motivators.
Yeah. And I was going to add too, I think when we were going through the deconversion process together, every single night we would join together and be like, well, what'd you learn today? And what'd you learn today? And we would talk about it together. And everything that we were saying, we're like, what? Like, I didn't know this. People need to know this. Like, we need to spread the word because this is very important and people don't know this. So I think that's what also led to our channel. And early on, we're like, we need to be recording these conversations. And so that's what led to it.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's really funny because just a couple of weeks ago, I was presented with the argument that Christianity, I don't know if the argument was hard this direction, but it was basically implying that Christianity must be true because couples or pairs of people in the religion stay closer together, and marriages are preserved more. And the caller was trying to basically say this is because it's the true religion. And my argument was, well, no, it's because people tend to congregate and bond over common interests. So as you two discovered this common interest, and you realize how much you jive together over it, I mean, I'm sure that brought you guys together even closer than it was before. And it shows that you don't need religion for this type of bonding, or this type of, close friendships or marriage. You guys are married, right? I don't want to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I was dancing around. I was like, I better just ask. Yeah. And it's great because, we're bonding over non-religion. We're getting closer over those things. It's just as effective as what you can find in religions, which I think really defeats that argument completely.
Especially.
I'll speak to that because I know early on. So we've been together now for over 18 years. And that was one of the first things that we were indoctrinated with, is that you need God to be able to come together and stay together. And we haven't been closer than after we deconstructed. I feel like this patriarchy and this misogynist type of God was in between us, and we had to kick him out. And now we're like even better.
Yeah. It's like a really bad marriage counselor, and you're following this really bad advice. And then the day you realize, wait a minute, we don't need this in our life, and you eject them. Yeah.
But it really is fear-based, because I literally remember when I was questioning, like, well, but if I leave, it may not be good for our marriage, because I felt like God would guide me in different fights we would have, or disagreements on what I should do. And I had a friend who was atheist and married, having a successful marriage. So I was like, maybe you don't have to have that. Maybe that's what I was just thinking. So definitely a big part of this belief.
And especially getting down to Christianity. Christianity is very hierarchy. It's very patriarchy. The man is the head of the wife because the man is headed by Jesus Christ. And it's just this toxic hierarchy where you are never an equal. No matter how hard you try, no matter how loyal you are, no matter how obedient you are, you're never an equal to the man in the relationship. And I was never in that position, but I can't imagine how liberating that must feel to kind of come out of that yoke and realize, hey, I am a co-partner and equal with my mate. I don't have to be subservient. I don't have to capitulate to his desires or his decrees. It can be a 50-50 relationship if that's your thing. There's relationships out there that are still subservient because both parties agree to it, and that's totally fine too. But just getting under that dictate, that Christian dictate, that you must be subservient, you must obey. I can imagine that would be extremely liberating and kind of just opening the world up to all kinds of possibilities to you.
It really is. It gives you a voice. It empowers you to use it, and to empower you to trust your own thoughts and opinions as being valid. For sure. It's life-changing. Even in my career, I feel like how I exert myself and voice my opinions is also different in my personal life.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
And we tried it. We went to the marriage small groups. We did the Bible study for married couples. I think one of the last things we ever were a part of at church was this book, Love and Respect. Man, we could not. We fought more.
Horrible.
Going through and wrestling with the ideas than our actual marriage.
Yeah.
Don't you remember that?
Oh yeah.
It was ridiculous.
It was toxic.
That's really good fodder for YouTube and TikTok content. The witnesses have same types of books that basically lay out how a marriage should function under Jesus. They have a book called Young People Ask Questions at Work, full of all kinds of bad advice on how to handle yourself at school. Things like, your sexual development and masturbation, and like all kinds of just toxic, terrible advice for people trying to just navigate life. And yeah, it's great YouTube fodder. I'm sure there's probably all kinds of publications from your religions, or at least affiliated with your religious denominations that are probably very similar. So yeah, great things to explore and criticize on online. Cool. Well, we probably only have a few minutes left before SR comes back in here to ruin the party. So one thing I've really appreciated about this entire hour, both of our three guests, Russell, Bryce, and James before, and now you three, is that we all have very differing backgrounds. We came from different denominations. We have different, we were either indoctrinated to extreme degrees or not indoctrinated at all. We all had different views and backgrounds and opinions about higher education and politics, and yet it kind of all led us to the same place, and that's non-belief. So I find that interesting how we all gravitated towards kind of a common theme, and that is, hey, we identified something in our life that we had been taught since we were young. We looked at it, we analyzed it, we broke free of any of the indoctrination or the lensing that these religions put on us. And we've identified these religions as what they are, myths and unsubstantiated claims and bad arguments. And any one of these religions could be true, but they haven't met any of their burden of proof, and they haven't provided any convincing reasons to adopt these. And that's kind of encouraging because, we look at the world today where we see lots of religious division. We see in certain parts of the world, like Islam, Muslims are on the rise as a majority. Other parts of the world, Christianity is still on the rise. And it can be kind of discouraging, but in more, first world developed countries, we see religiosity on the decline. And we see individuals like ourselves from all over the place coming together, unifying around common causes. Like today, we're talking about Skeptic Haven and their fundraising efforts. Do you think this is something that will, this is a snowball? It's going to keep on rolling down the hill and growing as it goes? Or do you think it's maybe just a 21st century fad that was started by the new atheists, the Four Horsemen, back in the late 90s? Do you think, what do you think the future of this movement is going to be?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to continue to grow and continue on this trajectory.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a fad. It's as the world grows, we're getting more and more access to more and more information, and we're able to find communities online that we couldn't find previously. Because the Christians have churches you can go to. We don't have that. We do have is online communities, like you were talking about earlier. So we find each other with common interests and common backgrounds, and we talk about them, and we make these connections. And other people gradually start seeing those, and they're like, there's other people like me that I didn't know existed prior. So they're gonna, people are gonna eventually, it's just gonna keep going on its current path, I think.
And I feel like now we're getting like Bible scholars, archaeologists, historians speaking out. And so facts and information with evidence are undeniable. So the more people see it, the more people know about it, it's going to be inevitable, I think.
Great.
Yeah, me too. I think if I may just put it by way of analogy that's relevant, I think that religion will eventually become the lump of coal that's left of the Krampus myth, where eventually, I guess, I don't know if that's just a phenomena in America, but like, I guess people realized, hey, maybe we shouldn't traumatize our kids. Maybe we shouldn't like bring monsters into our community to scare them into morality, but let's stick with the lump of coal, and that's going to be left of religion, hopefully someday. I don't think we'll get rid of everything altogether, but there will be some coal, and I'm looking forward to that.
I was going to add one more analogy, just like the whole flat earth thing. Like when originally when people were proposing that idea, it was seen as blasphemous, but with more and more evidence, more and more understanding, more and more people speaking to that, that thought evolution occurs as a society.
Right. Okay, as far as back, so I'll wrap it up really quick. I liked all these observations. I think I'm on the same train as what Dadpool and Mark and you all mentioned, that this is kind of a momentum that's continuing to grow. I think the internet has become kryptonite for Christians and for religion in general. There's a great diagram that I don't have available, but it was two diagrams showing the religion before the internet and religion after the internet. And before the internet, you have a large dot, that's your pastor, and 50 dots, that's your parishioners. And the only dot transmitting, like little Wi-Fi raise coming off of it is the pastor to the audience. But then once the internet was invented, now that pastor is still transmitting his message to the 50 other little dots, but now each of those 50 dots is now transmitting their own messages out. And that's what the internet's really allowed us to do, is that we can cross-examine and cross-analyze and mix with people of different opinions and different thoughts and approaches. And that really helps us break free of that control that religion has had over mankind for so long. And I really hope it keeps on going. Okay, so just to wrap it up, really quick, just so we aren't going too over time, plug your shows and we'll move back on to Secular Rarity and take the show on, make it continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go first because I gotta jump off here like nowish. But yeah, you can find me on TikTok by Captain Dadpool 86. You can also find me on YouTube by the same name, Captain Dadpool 86, or Nerds and Heresy. And yeah, I make fun educational content. I like to interview people smarter than me and make connections with people who have similar experiences, or and just talk and hang out. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I gotta get going. Super sorry to be rude. But this was fun. Thank you all.
No worries, Dadpool. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mark. Take it away.
All right. Well, folks, come visit us at Apostate of Mind in YouTube. And so we do, ours is a anti-missionary, anti-apologist channel, but, we do get into like the critical scholarship. We try to put it in a way we can all understand. And so everyone's welcome to come check us out and hopefully subscribe. And thanks, Skeptic Heaven, for giving us the opportunity to spread the word.
Yeah,
we're glad to have you guys on. You guys hosted Let's Talk just a couple weeks ago, and that was a great freaking episode. And I love seeing you guys everywhere. I just found out, because I was just looking a minute ago, I just found out you guys were interviewed on the Harmonic Atheist channel like 4 months ago, and I have not seen this yet. So I'm excited to go watch that after this is over, because seriously, I just love hearing from both y'all. And I got to shout out to the Spanish speaking atheists out there. I'm on a mission to get more atheist content for Spanish speakers. So Mark, you do a lot of great work with the Nuestra Experiencia Atea. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But again, as always, my job here is to say a bunch of nice words and then kick you off very rudely. So thank you guys so much for being here, but get off our stream, get out of here, get gone. Eric, I'm going to kick you off too, man. I'm so sorry.
The time has come. Yeah.
I know it has. We are here now. Unfortunately, the good news is we do have somebody coming on for this last hour. I think is, he's pretty decent, man. He's a pretty good guy. He actually, I think he was on Let's Talk not long ago either. What's up, Ember? How you doing?
Hello.
Hey, man. It is great to have you on. You are going to be bringing us into the close of this awesome fundraiser stream, which, by the way, folks, just as a reminder, Skeptic Haven is seeking 501c3 nonprofit status, so that we can continue our mission of providing educational and informative content for skeptically minded individuals and fostering a supportive and inclusive safe space for those who have left religion. So thank you so much, Eric, for being with us, man, and helping support it. Again, I'm always thrilled to see you on stuff, and you're doing more and more stuff. You were just on like the hang up the other day, weren't you?
I was.
Yeah.
Hopefully the frequency of my appearance on that show will increase. I'm very much enjoying working with Jimmy and Matt and crew over there. And yeah, it's just a good opportunity to kind of just get myself out there, interact with others, sharpen my debate skills and my knowledge, and challenge my beliefs. And yeah, I'm super enjoying it. So yeah, hope to be around a whole lot longer.
Good, man. Well, as you say those words ominously, I am kicking you off stream. So I know we'll see you again in the future, man.
Later, Eric.
Man. And Ember, I am excited, man, to have you bringing in these next guests because everything Eric was just saying about being skeptically minded and sharpening debate skills and just education in general, these next three guests are the epitome of that. OGs across the board, I think. So I'm really, really excited to hear from all of them. But before we bring them on. Of course, you know, we love to debunk myths, and there are so many Christmas myths out there. So let's hear one more and actually get some correct information here.
Myth 5. Can U.S. students sing religious carols in public schools? This idea is false, at least for now. As long as secular songs are included in a school holiday concert's repertoire, Christmas carols may also be sung. As of now, however, there's been no ruling by the Supreme Court, and no constitutional amendments banning this practice. Some schools do have bans.
Well, that's some fun info right there. That explains why when I was in school, we had to sing, 6 Christmas carols and then a Tina Turner song. Hello, folks. It's so wonderful to see all of you. I'm surrounded by science. We've got Dr. Prothero with paleontology and geology. We've got Professor Dave with chemistry and everything else. And we've got Aaron with evolutionary biology. This is fantastic. All 3 of you are renowned for doing battle with creationists. And, this is just going to be a great half hour. So I guess I like every video somebody's first video. So I'd like all of you guys to introduce yourselves so the audience who may not be aware know who you are.
I'm Don Prothero. As you said, I'm a paleontologist. I specialize in fossil mammals, especially rhinos, camels, horses, that kind of thing. But I also teach geology and other topics, including everything like oceanography and meteorology. I've done the gamut. And I currently teach at Cal Poly Pomona, and I'm a research associate at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County.
Very cool. Very cool. A lot of subjects.
Over to me.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Dave Farina, science communicator. I run the YouTube channel Professor Dave Explains. I studied and taught chemistry, so my the focus was initially chemistry, but now I'm kind of a generalist and have spread out into many different topics, and have and sort of pivoted into debunking a lot of different pseudoscience. Creationists is definitely one of the main focuses, but all flat Earth and electric universe and all kinds of nonsense. Just here to rehabilitate public science literacy.
Hell yeah.
I'm Aaron Ra. I do science communication as well, and I focus on taxonomy. Is my favorite area of interest. I think it's the strongest evidence for evolution, and it's certainly the hardest thing for creationists to argue against. So I issued the phylogeny challenge some 10 years ago or more, demanding that, if creationism was right about anything, or if evolution is fundamentally flawed, I mean, if the evolution of anything more than, say, a common ancestor for all of eukarya, then there has to be a point in the phylogenetic tree where, creationists often admit, well, that's just a change within kinds. Okay, so you'll accept evolution up to a point. Where's that point? Where do we have created kinds? I mean, and the way that I try to put this, because I've issued this challenge so many times, but creationists have never understood it. So I'm going to try to simplify it. Really simple now. Don't just show me 2 things and say that anybody can tell that they're different, because every one of us is different. So show me 3 things, and now we're going to have the Sesame Street thing of one of these things is not like the other, because there's always going to be an odd one out. But show me 4 things. Show me 4 animals, preferably vertebrates, but it could be any animals. Just show me 4 animals that are what science would consider closely related, within the same clades or whatever, to some degree, and but that you can tell that 2 of them represent one created kind, and the other 2 represent different created kinds. So we have 3 created kinds represented. And then you're going to have to explain how we know that. And I think it's real obvious why creationists never answer that challenge is because they know full well they're full of shit.
That's a mild way of putting it, I suppose.
Created kinds is whatever you want it to be. So I've seen them use everything, the highest to the lowest taxonomic rank, and if you pin them down on it, then they slumber over to something else. So
Yeah, on the Christmas thing, I just participated in a Krampus walk in my little Texas hometown, which I think it was a fun thing to do. It was the first time we've done it. It was nice to see all of these demons out in the middle of the street taking pictures with children. It was so endearing.
I can imagine. There's so many fun Christmas legends from around the world. My personal favorite is the Bergen from Switzerland, who's he's similar to Krampus, but the way he works is Santa comes and checks with the parents to see if the kids were good or bad. If they were bad, then the Bergen comes and takes them into a sack, and they're never seen again.
That is Krampus, isn't it?
It might be a variant of Krampus, yeah.
They're similar, yeah.
Okay.
So how did you folks get into I guess secular advocacy, science advocacy? Like what drove you to not just teach science but actively fight against the bad science, the pseudoscience and such?
In my case, I was teaching my first teaching job ever at a place called Knox College in Central Illinois, Galesburg, Illinois. And, I had been studying paleontology and evolution all my life, but I had started a thing in my curriculum there where I taught a course on evolution creationism, mostly just for fun. And that turned out to be a fun class to do. And then I was approached by Stanley Weinberg, who was the originator of the Committees of Correspondence that turned into NCSC. And he asked me to handle creationism in central and southern Illinois, the downstate part of it, non-Chicago Illinois. And so I was recruited to be a coordinator, which didn't amount to doing anything really important. I rarely got any demands. And the only activity I got to do as Illinois' downstate coordinator was to debate Wang Dish in 1983. And I had to cross state lines and go to Indiana to do that. But it was a real enlightening experience. And I did this at the same time as preparing that evolution course. So it actually made me create a lot of good slides for my talks. And that's the beginning of it. And then since then, every once in a while, I get sucked into it. And then the real sort of culmination of now 40 years of dealing with creationists was when I wrote my book in 2007 about evolution, What the Fossils Say. I finally decided to put my money where my mouth is and make a book about it. So.
Excellent. Yes.
For me, I got dragged into debunking by the flat earthers of all things. So that was kind of the thing that got me started down the debunking path. But I got into that and realized I had a knack for it. And I kind of looked around to see what else I could debunk. And obviously, fundamentalists are putting forward a great deal of pseudoscience. So I thought I would debunk some of that. And then once I started to dig into it and really see the depth of the propaganda and see the depth of the agenda of the, of Christian nationalists and things and how urgent it is, I devoted even more attention to that. And now I'm definitely, very involved with that.
Yeah, that's an important point. That's one of the reasons that we're all here today, because there's actual consequences to these things. It's not just people believing silly things, and it's important to have nonprofit organizations that are secular in nature. So yeah, I totally get you there. And
yeah,
Aaron.
for me, it was when I ended up on Talk.Origins, and I found myself in conversations with Christian extremists, Reconstructionists, who were bragging that they had that their minister had been on the phone with all of these other ministers across the state, and they were collaborating to make all of so that the ministers would tell their entire congregations to vote as a block for certain candidates so that they could manipulate and instate evangelical or extreme radical Christians to every position in government, from dog catcher on up. And the goal that they were confessing to me was to a couple of years later, it was detailed in the Wedge document, where the whole goal was to put evangelical Christians in every level of state and federal government for the purpose of having a court case that challenges evolution, because the first goal was to attack science, so that nobody trusted science anymore. And if they didn't trust science, then they would be susceptible to superstition. And then they were planning on, it was their 5-year plan, that they would have a Kitzmiller versus Dover type trial, in which they predicted that there could be a conservative Christian Republican judge, and there was, but they expected that judge to rule according to the bias of his religious convictions, and that didn't happen.
And he didn't.
So that was a big surprise to the Reconstructionists. But the way they explained it to me, was that, excuse me, this is a baby snake. This is the first time I'm handling her, and she's mad.
I thought you were trying to do a Garden of Eden motif there.
She's not having
the way they explained it to me was much like when the villain explains to the hero what their whole agenda is, what their whole plan is, when it's supposedly too late for the hero to do anything about it. That's how I felt. They were bragging about all these judges and senators and so forth that they had already positioned, and that this was just going to happen and there's no way to stop it. And these people, they were Reconstructionists, so they were following after R.J. Rushdoony of Chalcedon Institute. So they were naming all the senators and stuff that came from Chalcedon, that were Reconstructionists, that wanted to establish a government that enforced Levitical law. If you think Sharia is bad, look up Leviticus. So here I am thinking roundabout Y2K, little harmless old me. I'm trying to figure out what the hell can I do to stop my entire country from going down the fucking toilet this way. And the only thing I could think to do was initially argue with these people online, because somebody's got to at least say something, right? And then eventually I honed my arguments at Talk.Origins, and then got a hold of YouTube and made a channel out of those polished arguments, and then just continued from there. I don't know if we're having any successes, though. I just did a series on our recent our new Speaker of the House, and what a batshit crazy wonderbug this guy is.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Ken Ham's very happy about it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it blows my mind how they can be so open about it. Like, I understand the wedge document was leaked, but still, it's right out there.
Shameless is the word.
Yeah,
they don't even know that what they're doing is wrong.
Now, some of them.
Yeah, there's a bit of a difference in operational philosophy. There's the money motive, but also there's this perception. Most people consider rules are there to be followed. You're not supposed to break the rules. I think it's Scott Meyer makes a basketball analogy. In basketball, you can get 5 fouls before you're ejected from the game. So most people try not to get fouls. But then there's this other group of people who read it as though you can get up to 5 fouls before you actually have consequences. So if you're not fouling people, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
And it's kind of spooky how that mindset works.
The problem I have with this is that the people who say that they're all about personal liberty, right, want to deprive me of mine.
Yeah, and a lot of women of theirs.
The people who identify as the Constitution Party, the Constitutionalists, the ones who don't want to defend the Constitution, and they are actively undermining various aspects of it, in particular the First Amendment. And by that, I mean not just the first 2 clauses of the First Amendment, but every single provision therein. And I have a problem with this. I mean, when you say that you're for defending the Constitution, and then you, in the second breath, say that you're going to throw it out.
Yeah, we don't need that. Entirely. We need biblical law. Oh my goodness. I've seen so many video clips, and thankfully it's not strictly party lines. I've seen the United States is a mess, folks. I've seen Republican senators argue against other Republicans when they try to propose a Bible-based law. And there was a famous one that was making the rounds not long ago. It was a state level law where the teacher wanted to ban the teaching of gender, period, in all school curricula. And
what, is everybody supposed to wear the same monochromatic uniform?
Well, the one senator who was a Republican asked her, under this law, if it passed, how would we teach students about Martha Washington? Like, what are we supposed to say? And she hemmed and hawed, and she didn't have it. She hadn't thought about it because they never think of the consequences of their actions. But
yeah, so recently
we do digress.
Yeah, recently I want to make a video on this like today. I really want to make a video on it right now. There was a monument to or a shrine in the Iowa State Capitol to Baphomet that was put up there by the Satanic Temple. Now, of course, for the Christmas holidays, they put up all of the Christian stuff, and then they put up the menorah up there too, because they're going to respect the Jews. You know, at least pay lip service to respecting the Jews as long as they're useful. And but it doesn't become an issue of secularism until the Muslims want to get involved, right? When they want to put up their thing, and then of course you don't have an option for the non-belief. What's that? So you have the Satanic Temple that puts up their alternate. And so if we're going to respect the First Amendment, if we're going to expect that, if we're going to say that you're going to give credence to religious freedom, give credence to religious freedom, allow that we can other people can have different opinions or whatever. But of course, the current culture politically is not about that at all, is it? It's about dominance. It's about subjugating everybody else. So that if you're not white, you're not male, you're not Christian, you're not straight, whatever, and then you're a second-class citizen, and you are to be dominated. And anything that if you think for a moment that other people might have issues or fewer privileges and more concerns because of their demographic, well, then that's woke. And that's like somehow that's having compassion for other people that have problems you don't have. Somehow that's bad. And not only is that bad, it's the worst thing ever.
It'd make you too much like Jesus.
The real Jesus and not the one they think of. Yeah. Not Republican Jesus.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So now some guy, some Christian failed congressman, just ran for Congress, didn't get it, but he goes into the Iowa State Capitol, destroys the monument, and of course the Christians are thinking he's righteously supported, so they're raising all this money for him. And Ron DeSantis says that he's gonna fund the legal campaign to protect this Christian's right to destroy religious monuments. So Ron DeSantis is admitting that he advocates the vandalism and destruction of religious monuments, and that he does not respect our constitutionally guaranteed freedom of religion. He does not respect the Constitution, but he does respect vandalism. He does advocate for vandalism of religious monuments.
Yep, as long as they're not his. But there's so many sides to these issues. There's the political issues, there's the individual people, but as we often say around these parts, it's important to not just fight against the problems, but to fight for the solutions. And that's why I'm so glad to have you three here, because science education, I believe, not only helps mitigate the problems, but helps build solutions. I suppose before SR wanders back to kick everybody off, I'd like to know what each of the three of you, your favorite things about where science is going, where it's likely to lead us in the future might be.
Someone else go first. I have to think about that a moment here.
Yeah, that's hard one to answer. I mean, just more of what we've been doing. I mean, the way we've been, innovating new technologies and innovating new medicines and doing all these things that enhance the quality of human life. I mean, once you actually study science and see everything that it offers, and then you turn around and you look at this, pile of ancient myths that never did anything for anybody other than mitigating their fear of mortality. Like there's no contest here. You know what I mean? Like, this is where we want to put our time and our effort. And I agree that it's important to not just attack the science deniers, but also teach science, because the more educated each next generation becomes, the more the problem just solves itself. It'll just dissipate, because if you have an educated populace, and I'm actually really proud of Gen Z, they seem to be really on it about science, about politics, about activism. So that actually does give me some optimism for the future, politically, scientifically, everything. So yeah, we all keep doing our part.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I actually teach a lot of Gen Zs regular basis, and a wide variety of large courses of science, different kinds. and 3 or 4 of them end with climate change as my final topic. Oceanography does, and natural disasters does, and so on. And I'm very heartened to say I don't run into climate deniers at all, or if they do exist in my classes, they're very quiet. But this is California, and these are Gen Z, so maybe I'm not speaking for much of the rest of the country, but that is something that gives me a lot of hope. There's still a problem on older generations with creationism, but their numbers are declining.
Yes.
And us non-religious, the nuns, are definitely increasing nationwide, although more so in some places than others. And so the battle is slowly, working. And then it certainly on the topic of climate change, which most of the Gen Z is very interested and very concerned about, because they realize they're the ones who are going to pay the price of previous generations' activities, or lack of activity, really. That they are, there's no convincing necessary for most of them. I rarely experience much of the evidence of climate deniers in at least take classes in science that I would teach. And I don't run into much of them in the evolution segment of it either. When I teach evolution in the dinosaurs course, I don't ever once get a creationist try to speak out. Now, there may be some in there who do, but I just go straight at it. Matter of fact, I don't even waste any time talking about anything creation related, although I will spend time in my evolution segment of the dinosaurs course debunking the common myths that come from people's ignorance of evolution, like, if humans arose from apes, why are apes still around? And, the missing link stuff. There's a lot of older myths that people have been fed that you sort of have to clear the brush out to get to the real science. And I never give creationism any time in that segment, but I think it helps them, understand evolution better if they were having those issues to begin with. So I'm on that battle line of hundreds of students a semester are in my classes. So I see a lot of students over the course of several years, although not, of course, the national level. But then I do, of course, write books for the national level too. So I have my evolution book, and just recently my book on Weird Earth, about flat earthers and geocentrists and all the rest, that hopefully reach a large audience. Although I don't think a lot of people read anymore. I think it's better to work on the electronic media than paper books. So
I'd suggest consider audiobooks. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm constantly when I'm not here on the interwebs, I'm doing audiobooks because busy, but you can always, your ears are always there.
And what he means by that is that he wants to narrate your audiobook.
Don't make me get out my God voice.
The contracts are written, so my audiobooks are all out there, and I never get notified about any of it. They never tell me they're going to do it. They never tell me who they've hired to narrate it. And oftentimes there's an actor who doesn't really know the pronunciation of scientific words. I've only had one instance where I had any input at all in the audiobook, and that was my evolution book, which luckily they let me sit in the outer booth and listen to the actor voice it. And he was a friend of mine. He's a professional actor here in Hollywood. So I was able to basically sit in the booth, and when they cut away, I would help them with some pronunciations. That's it. Most of the rest of the audiobooks, I don't even know they exist until someone tells me they listened to it. The publishers are not under any obligation to tell you anything, right? That's part of the way the contracts are written. They have control completely.
Before we get separated, Don, I have a quick question. You can answer it in email after this is over if you don't mind. I'm working on a video script right now on the evolution of whales.
Yep.
And I want to show a number of the basal forms from like the beginning of Artiodactyla to Pachycetus. What are the closest things that we've got going there? And I know Indohyus and a couple of others, but you being the expert on mammals, can you throw some at me in email?
Yeah, actually, I prepared a talk for a lecture I'm giving next week on that very topic. I can send you the PowerPoint. It's mostly anthracotheres, which are the common ancestor of both whales and hippos. And I've actually been working on anthracotheres the last couple of years. So groups not a lot of people think about, but they're important.
If you could send that to me tonight, because I'm working late tonight on this.
Yeah, email me, and then I'll try to see if the file isn't too big to send, but I'll get it to you somehow.
Thank you so much.
Great. Well, thanks to all of you guys. This has been a blast.
Yeah, seriously. And unfortunately, I'm coming in once again just to ruin everything and stop all the flow of knowledge and information. But seriously, Dr. Prothero, Professor Dave, Aaron, thank you so much for being here. The three of you have so much incredible work out there. And I have found myself, even in the last couple of weeks, just not responding to people and instead just sending a link to some of your content and just being like, oh, you don't have to listen to what I have to say. You just have all of this information right here. There's lots of citations. You three are some of the biggest reasons why Christian nationalists and pseudoscientists and creationists all over are dwindling and just continuing to lose ground. Seriously, if we actually have a war on Christmas out there, it is because of the work y'all have done. So seriously, thank you so much for being here. And I say all those nice things to soften the blow of me just, kicking you off a stream. But seriously, you guys are truly wonderful people. And thank you so much again for donating your time and being here for this great cause. So, but
thanks for having us.
With that,
Good
get
to see
out
you
of
again,
here.
Dave. Yeah, good to see you, Aaron.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. Have a great session.
Thank
Happy
you all
Heathenmas.
so much.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Well, Ember, unfortunately, we eventually have to close up, but we're not done yet, folks. We're not done yet. And before we bring on our next wonderful guest, let me just say thank you so much to everybody out there that has been donating to the link in the chat, tinyurl.com/gift sh2023. Every single penny of that means so much to us because we are here seeking nonprofit status for Skeptic Haven. That is unfortunately a difficult task. It is something that takes quite a lot of effort by a lot of people behind the scenes. And all of this is a big, it's a big mission. It's a big goal. And you wonderful people that have been out there with us this whole time and watching in the future. We know there'll be people that check this out after the live is over.
Hello,
So
future people.
That's right. We're thinking about you too. Seriously, thank you all so much. This is a really, really big deal. And we're just so proud to have so many incredible people that have joined us. And we've got a couple more. We're not done yet, you guys, but I'm sorry, hang on. I'm getting word here. I'm getting message. We have something. Okay. We'll play it right now. We have something coming direct from the North Pole. I'm not sure what this is. There is a special announcement coming directly from the North Pole, folks. So hang on. Wes, can you pipe that in for us? I think we've got it.
At this time, station KID TV brings you the special event of the year, a first in television history. At this very moment, KID TV has standing by a television crew at Santa Claus Workshop. And in just a few seconds, our special correspondent, Andy Henderson, will bring you a person-to-person interview with Santa Claus himself direct from the North Pole, where at the moment, the temperature is 91 degrees below zero. And now KID TV takes you via Telstar, Andy Henderson at the North Pole.
Hi, kids. This is Andy Henderson at the North Pole. Woo, it's cold up here. From this spot, there's only one direction you can go, and that's south. Living up here is pretty rough. I don't see how Santa stands it. Since we've been here, we've eaten nothing but frozen food. At least that's the way it is by the time we get it. And now, let's take a look-see into Santa's workshop.
Oh, I was hoping we'd get to explore the workshop.
Yeah, I was ready to go in the workshop too.
I'm disappointed. I'm leaving.
There's a big tease there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we got to wait till Christmas. One never knows. Oh well. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for joining. It's great to go from science to what do we call this? Biblical scholarship? Ed,
We do Old Testament, both of us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's go with that. Alrighty. So, Well, let's start this segment the same way we did the last. For anybody who's not familiar with you folks, would you care to introduce yourselves, say what you do, where you're from, and where people can find you, and all that jazz?
Yeah, so my name is Jason. I'm the host of the Dragons and Genesis podcast, which is a monthly secular Bible study comparative mythology show where we tackle basically the entire Bible, every single chapter. We pretty much go in order unless my ADD kicks in and I go off on a tangent somewhere. So we don't skip anything because even the boring stuff has something interesting that we can learn. And we don't shy away from the uncomfortable topics, like the genocide or when people and angels have sex and create a race of bloodthirsty giants that try to devour everything.
Yay, Nephilim.
So we find all the fun stuff, and there's a lot of stuff in there to find because it's a really complicated and fascinating book if you know how to read it. And so what I do is I go through the Bible, or actually multiple versions of the Bible, along with multiple commentaries and articles and books and everything else, and I try to just compile all the information and deliver it to you in a way that isn't boring and has lots of fun, fascinating stuff. Or, as I tell my listeners, I read the boring stuff so that you don't have to.
That's a good way to put it. And Ed, I know you've done books, at least one book, about goddesses having to do with the ancient mythology, going all the there we go.
There's my book. I'm the author.
Yeah.
My name is Edward Dodge. I'm the author of A History of the Goddess from the Ice Age to the Bible. And so my whole approach, and I'm working on a follow-up now, and my whole approach is was exploring Asherah and these characters and the goddesses in the Old Testament. And basically my argument at this point is that the God of the Old Testament has had a mother. He did have a mother in the Bible, and that there is a very a newly rediscovered narrative of their divorce and getting rid of her. And that it actually was a very important historical aspect of the transition from polytheism, Israelite polytheism, to monotheism in the First Temple. Basically, they were pagans all the way through the First Temple historically. They had a whole pantheon of gods. The God of the Bible was still two separate gods. El and Yahweh were, in my opinion, separate for the whole of the First Temple, basically, more or less. And that, so Asherah, and then the goddesses were worshipped as Asherah, Astarte, and Anat, this triple goddess, which is actually a part of a bigger tradition of mother goddess worship across the ancient Near East, which we can go into as well. But yeah, so my thing is all about the mother goddess, and it's really about putting it back in terms of modern day environmentalism, where I really think that we really need to recover these. I think there's some wisdom there, frankly, and that's important to rediscover.
Yeah, it's a compelling take. It's sort of like we were talking about with our science friends moments ago, how it's important to not just look at what is and what isn't true, but also what we do with that information. And I hadn't considered an environmentalist take, but I agree. There's a lot of wisdom to be found in the ways and the cultures of the ancient people and how they came to believe.
Well, I mean, I make my living in renewable energy, like climate change. Renewable energy is actually my profession. I do this stuff as a hobby. And so I'm a big believer in a circular economy, zero waste, and reconnecting to nature and, reintegrating our, an ecological civilization is the term I'm using now. How do we get there? And ecological civilization is one that puts ecology first. And these old traditions of the mother were literally about nature, life, death, and renewal. And these were cycle of life traditions. They call them fertility religions, but really they were cycle of life religions where they were just as much focused on death as they were on life and on birth. And so these were very widespread, very important traditions across the ancient Near East. They're kind of hiding in plain sight that they're all over the place. People just aren't really seeing it. The postmodernist academics are frankly invested in not seeing it. They don't want the goddess tradition. They're actually quite hostile to it. It's been around. I'm not the first person to take a crack at this. People have been talking about it for nearly 100 years. And but since the 90s, the academics, ever since Maria Gimbutas died, who was the last great champion of all this stuff in academia, she died in 95. There's been nobody within academia to champion these ideas. And so they've been getting today's academics are shooting down left, right, and center, but I don't agree with them. I really don't. I think they're getting it wrong.
What are your thoughts on leftover elements of goddessness in what remains of Scripture, Jason?
Yeah, so this is actually something that, even though I haven't read Ed's book yet, I think I have it on the shelf that's behind me. I haven't read it yet, but every time I hear him talk, I'm reminded of something that I covered in a previous episode of the podcast, because there are little bits of these especially like in the wisdom literature, there's bits of this goddess throughout the Hebrew Bible, and this is actually an idea that a biblical scholar in the UK pointed out. Parts of this tradition survived well into the New Testament period, and there's actually parts where like some of the early Christian writers are talking about this, and that
Virgin
the
Mary
goddess
steeped in all of it.
Asherah
She's got all the
survived as the
titles.
Holy
She's got
Spirit.
all the. I mean, when the Protestants talk about the Catholic Virgin Mary as being just a warmed over pagan goddess, they're like totally correct. The thing is, they just knocked her down even further and got rid of her even more than the Catholics did. No, but she's called the Queen of Heaven. Virgin Mary is called the Queen of Heaven. She's called the Mother of God. She's part of. She's a virgin birth. These are all tropes. These symbols and tropes were being recycled. They were being reused. These are very, very old tropes. All of them. So like, yeah, no, they were making very intentional in Christianity, making it very intentional to take the parts that they liked and reshape them into a form that they liked and eliminate the parts that they didn't like. So they're doing the same thing. And in the Old Testament, all the goddess stuff gets channeled through King Solomon. So the Song of Songs, all the wisdom, literature of Proverbs, it's all meant to be King Solomon. King Solomon is directly criticized for his goddess of worship by the biblical writers, but at the same time, they use him as the guy that they can channel all the bits and pieces that they want to keep and hold on to. They put it all through him. It all goes through King Solomon, because then Sophia, the feminine, takes the form of wisdom, and Sophia in the Greek and the Hellenistic and in the later Hebrew literature, like the Wisdom of Solomon, that's a later book. That is all like, anytime you see a reference to her or Sophia or wisdom or she, it's in one way or another, it's always going to be one of the ones that's associated with King Solomon. They're always associated with King Solomon.
Yeah. There's some very interesting things that you'll find, like I believe in the Gospel of Philip. There's actually
Gnostics too, yeah.
Yeah, so there's this part where they're talking about like Mary conceiving by the Holy Spirit, and they're like, that is impossible, because since when has a woman ever conceived by another woman? And it shows that early Christians, at least some of them, they believed that the Holy Spirit was it was a female figure. It was a goddess, and a lot of the stuff associated with it can be traced back to this ancient Canaanite mythology. Stories that were discovered in Western Syria. They found this massive library over there, and we really got, for the first time, a good look at the Canaanite mythology. And when they started looking at it and they started learning more about Asherah, it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of parallels between Asherah and some of these things that we're reading about this Lady Wisdom, this Queen of Heaven. There's even some really fascinating parallels between the goddess Asherah and Mary, like this one scene where she's in the temple. It's in one of the infancy gospels. I don't remember which one, but she's in this temple, and she goes and she's like dancing in front of the high priest, and then later she's given the job of like weaving red thread for the temple curtain. And
where the women did weaving
Christian
for Asherah?
Iconography, she's got, she's often depicted, Mary holding these spindles of red thread. And it's like, this is Asherah imagery that goes back thousands of years before Christianity, and the whole thing where she's dancing in front of the high priest.
Well, where is that you're referencing?
It's one of the infancy gospels. I don't remember which one, but I can find this and send it over to you. Yeah, and So in this one scene, we have to remember that the high priest of the temple is meant to represent God. That's his job, is an earthly representative. And in the Ugaritic text, we have Asherah in the big temple dancing before El Elyon. And later, she's depicted like with red thread, and she's like this weaving goddess and all this other stuff. And it's like, these are the same stories. They've just been repackaged. And Mary is basically just a toned down version of this wisdom goddess.
Yeah, and Mary's home was Ephesus, which is what had the greatest goddess temple of the ancient world, the temple to Artemis or Diana, which was, it doesn't exist anymore, but in Ephesus in Turkey was the greatest pagan temple of all time, the biggest, grandest, most famous. Paul goes there in the New Testament, one of his travels, and they almost kill him. That's one of the places where Paul gets in trouble and has to be rescued. It's in the temple to Artemis in Ephesus. Yeah. And there's a whole scene about it in one of Paul's letters. Yeah. Or maybe it's in Acts. No, it's in Acts. Yeah. And then John, the gospel writer John is, by tradition, goes to Ephesus with Mary and establishes the whole like first churches for Mary and establishes the whole thing. And then all the Catholic churches, not all of them, but so many of them are named for the Mary this or Mary that. And then so many of them were in fact built on previous pagan goddess sites. Tons of them. The Notre Dame chapel, that was built on an old goddess site. In fact, the name of Paris is named for Isis because they were Isis worshippers up there. And then there's so many of them. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, which is supposedly Jesus' burying site, was originally a Venus temple to Venus in Roman era, and it was fascinating. And it was Constantine's mother who came to Jerusalem and said, "Oh, we're going to turn that into that's actually where Jesus was buried," and they turned it from a Venus temple to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Yeah, I just looked it up. It's the Infancy Gospel of James that has those particular scenes. There's this lady, Margaret Barker. She's a biblical scholar in the UK. I think she used to teach maybe at Cambridge. Brilliant woman. And now this woman, I think she's a Methodist minister. So this is a Christian.
Yeah, no, she's a believer.
She talks. She's like, Mary is like the story of Mary is a retelling of Asherah. Like a lot of the stuff about Mary is taken directly. It is a reimagining of
very
the Asherah
big on
character.
the feminine divine in the first temple, and but because she's a Christian, she can't quite come all the way to saying like, oh, they're just pagans, right? She's still got like hold to the orthodoxy. So she can't come all the way to my viewpoint where it's just like total paganism and just being whitewashed history. But yeah, she's like barking down that same tree. When I listen to her, she's doing it from a Christian theological perspective, but she's totally barking out the same.
Yeah. So like literally Christian scholars are coming to these same conclusions. I'm actually reading a book by Jacob L. Wright. He's a professor down in Georgia, and he has his book that I'm reading called Why the Bible Began. And one of the fascinating things that I found in there is this idea that Yahweh wasn't even originally a single deity. Now, we know that like Yahweh merged with El Elyon, but he even points out that we've got archaeological evidence that there were multiple Yahwehs being worshipped. There was Yahweh of Edom, Yahweh of Samaria, Yahweh of Jerusalem. And then gradually they're like, okay, let's kind of just cram them all together, and we just have one Yahweh, and he's the son of El Elyon. And then later, the conglomerate Yahwehs merged with El, and it's now all just like Yahweh El.
The son becomes the father.
Like we didn't even have like a single Yahweh. It looks like we actually had multiple. Like,
well, sure, in the pagan era, that's how they did it. You had Baal of this town and Baal of that town, and Astarte of this town and Astarte of that town, and so Yahweh was being worshipped in the same way. Yahweh was originally just another pagan god. And it took like 500 years for them to like merge them together. It really it took place over centuries. And my argument is that it starts out as a culture war and the theology comes later. And they really are having a reformation over just straight up cultural practices like human sacrifice, which I think they were genuinely trying to get rid of. And I think that, I think we can all thank the Hebrew prophets for eliminating that practice, because I think they were doing it. And then the these goddess cults, it's the same stuff as the Dionysian cult. The Dionysian cults are the same thing. The Eleusinian mysteries, it's all part of the same big package. And so it's got all the same sex and drugs that's going on in the Dionysian cults. And then they're fighting about it. They're clearly fighting about it. And the prophets are, castigating all the Canaanite Israelite women for their lascivious sex lives. Well, I think they were, because I think they're matriarchal tribes, and I think that's what they are actually. I think that's the core thing. It's a transition from matriarchal tribal structures that are where the families are built around the mothers to that basically patriarchy follows kingship, that the default of humanity were matriarchal tribal structures. And so you have a 2,500 year period where patriarchal families only followed kingship, and they get imposed as a new ruling class during the Bronze Age. They didn't exist. There was no kings before the Bronze Age. There's no king of the gods before the Bronze Age. All this stuff happens in the Bronze Age with the technology revolution that invents weapons and gives tips a balance of power towards ruthless men who can steal and murder and take power by force. And because they're riding horses and they've got bronze weapons. They start enslaving women, and then it's a long time. It's like centuries and centuries where only women are being enslaved before they figured out how to enslave men, because men were just more difficult to deal with. And it's slowly, there's mothers' families and fathers' families living side by side for like 1,000 years, and they're arguing about it during Babylonian stuff. And then when you get to the Bronze Age collapse, 1200 BC, and there's like a dark age for 300 years. From 1200 to 900 BC, and this is when the Exodus happens, and this is when the Trojan War happens, and all this stuff that sets the tone for that, all these events that inspire all this mythology. And as we come out of the Bronze Age and go into the Iron Age, there's a whole nother Reformation, and the Greeks and the Hebrews are both doing it, and they lock the women down hard, and they take away all whatever last vestiges of independence and authority women had, they take it away. And part of reforming these goddesses and reforming these traditions is that these goddesses, it's like the way Lilith was Adam's first wife and she wasn't submissive, so they had to get rid of her and replace with Eve. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm saying that happened culturally. These goddesses are not submissive. That's the thing about Asherah, Astarte, and Anat. They are not submissive to the gods in the Ugaritic text. Asherah is not submissive to El. Astarte is not submissive to anybody. Astarte is just Ishtar from Babylon. She is not submissive, and she's super sexual. And then Anat is like Kali, and she is more powerful than anybody. And that's why they don't even mention her in the Old Testament, because they're scared of her, because she's more powerful than El and more powerful than Yahweh, and they can't defeat her. All they can do is ignore her.
Yeah. So anyone who's not familiar with this stuff.
Actually, I want to ask you, that prompts a question. We're talking about the Ugaritic text here. So Jason, let me ask you, what do you think of the relationship between the Ugaritic text and the Old Testament? And there's a lot of debate about this within scholarship, is what would you say, and how would you characterize what people are saying in general about the relationship between the Ugaritic texts that are newly discovered? Like, we've only had them for the public in the last generation.
Yeah.
So they're quite new. How would you say they relate to, the Old Testament?
The fact that they get mentioned about once every other episode in my podcast, I'd say there's a very strong relation. I mean, there's constantly these little stories that keep popping up, or there'll be particular names of figures, like very particular name, like when Yahweh is called the rider in the clouds. That's a very particular phrase that's being used. And considering it is about someone who is supposedly, this great enemy of his, the Canaanite god Baal, who, if you read the Old Testament, is like the complete antithesis to Yahweh.
Right.
But then when you read the Ugaritic text, you're like, is this just Yahweh with a different name? And then when you read other Ugaritic texts, you're like, oh, wait, there's this part where El, after Baal has been elevated in heaven, he says that, from this day you shall be called Yah. And it's like, oh. And then when you read in, I think, Hosea 2, where Yahweh's like, you will no longer call me Baal, but you will call me Yahweh. And it's like,
Yeah, no,
Baal
my view
and
on this is that
Yahweh,
Baal was the incumbent king of the gods, and they're having a coup and getting rid of him.
Yeah.
In replacing Baal with Yahweh. Yahweh is stealing his title,
Yeah.
stealing his throne, stealing his thunder.
Yeah. And it's like, and you look at it, and Baal is like another, so much of Baal is just wrapped up into Yahweh. Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out, like, how much of this God is original to Yahweh, and how, like, it's like 75% of the deity is actually just Baal renamed. I mean, he's the rider on the clouds. He's always pictured with his right hand raised, usually with a spear. He hurls the thunderbolts. He's the god of grain, and he's the favorite son of El Elyon, and on and on and on. So yeah, as far as the relationship between the Old Testament and the Ugaritic text, it's like at the end of the Bronze Age, like 1180 BCE, the lights went out. And centuries later, they came on again, and everything had been moved around. And there was this long period where we really don't have much in the way of writing. But we can see how it started with like the Ugaritic text and things similar to that, and it ended with the Old Testament, and they are indeed connected. They're like,
I
can't argue that they are.
I think it's totally a prequel.
There's just steps that happened during this dark period in which like cuneiform was no longer being taught. It wasn't being used anymore. The Phoenician alphabet was coming up and everything, and we just don't have a lot of documentation. A lot of their theology and society, their cultural identity, all these different things were changing rapidly because society had just completely collapsed, and it took centuries for it to start coming up again. And when when they started writing things down again, things were different. But we can see where they came from. We can see where things were going at the end of the Bronze Age, and we can see where things were coming from, and exactly how it went from the Ugaritic text to the Hebrew Bible is going to be something we're debating for centuries to come, because we have parts of the beginning and we have parts of the end, and there's this vague middle. But they are on the same path, and there's just no questioning that. The Old Testament is descended from this mythology, and biblical scholars are coming around. They're seeing this, and they're speaking about it now as just a point of fact. They're like, oh yeah, these things happened. And even biblical scholars who are Christians are saying this, and that's one of the really amazing things. Some of them go further than others, but it came out of Canaanite mythology. The Israelites
I personally think it's directly related for sure.
Yeah,
like a direct prequel.
It's evolution. It's exactly the same as evolution. We have the fossils at this state and the fossils at this state, and there's intermediate steps we just don't have fossils for.
Yeah, we have these modern humans, and we have early hominids, and we've got this big gap in this fossil record, and we have to go in and discover all of those little intermediaries that archaeologists have found over the last century. And that's where they are with biblical studies. We're trying to find all those other different things, Australopithecus and stuff like that. We're trying to find those species so we can understand how it came about, how we started walking, more upright and using tools and destroying everything.
Yeah, and I think you said something there that really touches on why I think both of you in the work that you do are so good at it, is because the topics you two focus on, there is such a gap in terms of the connection to us today, right? Now, of course, time wise, right? It was so freaking long ago, but culturally, I mean, there's just so much space, and you two do such a wonderful job of parsing that out and breaking it down so that it is easy for a modern audience to understand. I mean, Jason, one of your episodes talks about how the Noah story ends And then the very next one is the Tower of Babel, and how the way that Noah's story ends and the Tower of Babel story starts is this like really weird kind of contradiction. That's the first time I had ever come across that. I'd read that like 1,000 times and just had never caught on to it. And Ed, your work not only cataloging the history of goddesses across the world, but the work you've done with cannabis use in the ancient times and how that plays into the Bible narrative and these different rituals and things. It is just awesome. And again, there is so much nuance there, and you guys do such a wonderful job of making it palatable for us modern idiots, I guess.
And I want to point out real quick that Ed was talking about the Israelites using cannabis in their rituals years before the discovery of the Temple of Tel Arad and the insane amounts of cannabis residue inside of that temple to Yahweh. So
Yahweh and Asherah. That's a Yahweh and Asherah site.
Yeah.
Chris Bennett's the guy who deserves a real credit for taking it back to the 90s. That's where I learned it from. But yeah, it was the cannabis stuff that actually got me into this whole story, because I was looking in from Chris Bennett. I had learned about how there's 5 references where it's been mistranslated, and the most important one is that it's an ingredient in Moses' holy anointing oil. So I was like, man, I mean, it's sacred, and at some point later, it was no longer sacred, so they threw it out at some point. And so that was what I started researching to try and figure out where did they get rid of the weed and why. And it was that I discovered. That's when I stumbled into the whole Asherah thing, and I was totally and I was reading that the scholars are all saying that God had a wife, which just totally like utterly melted my brain, because I just couldn't even like make sense of it at all. It took me like a whole year to even like grok the whole idea at all at a theological level. But the second thing is, I was amazed that the academics like totally didn't seem to give much of a shit about it. Like they didn't really like care for the theological. I was like, this is like the most important theological argument I've ever heard in my life. The wife of God, like this,
right?
And the academics could care less. They don't care. They're not interested in these goddess narratives. They're not interested in what I'm talking about. They won't talk to me. They reject the whole triple goddess narrative. They reject ritual prostitution. Like, why? I think they're getting it wrong. And they totally miss in the Ugaritic text when Anat goes up to El and threatens and says she's going to kill him. The academics describe her as being very rude.
Yeah.
I mean, in fairness, that is rude.
Dominance. That is a sign of dominance. She is exercising her dominance over the creator of the universe, telling you that she's not only going to smash his skull in and make his gray beard run red with gore, but she's also saying that she's going to tear down his house. Well, what is his house? His house is all of creation. So if Anat is saying she's going to tear down El's house, and he's not reprimanding her, he's like, "Oh, my daughter, what can I do for you today?" He's like all friendly about it. And it's not just once, it's in multiple stories. Every time she talks to El, she like treats him like that. And every time he gives her what she wants. And the academics are totally missing that this is a sign of clear dominance. This is a female that is non-submissive to the High Father. That's why they had to get rid of her, because you can't have a patriarchal society where you expect your women to be kept under wraps if they got all these goddesses running around that are exercising dominance. And you've got Ishtar running around being like, fuck me, fuck me, fuck me. And like, I mean, her liturgies are openly pornographic by our standards. And Astarte is Ishtar, and like that's why they get rid of her, because it's all this like they call her shameful Astarte. Ashtoreth means shameful Astarte. Why are they calling her shameful? Because it's slut shaming. This is literally the beginning of slut shaming.
Purity culture.
That's how far back it goes.
And how far back it goes. And there's transgender people there too. Transgender people were part of the whole complex, and they're getting thrown out too. They're mentioned 3 times in the Old Testament. They're called the Holy Ones, and it's only when they're being chased away. The only time they get mentioned.
I got to learn more about that.
So that's part of what I talk about. No, the trans folks are like the high priests of the mother goddesses, and they've got these fantastic names. They're all over the place. This is how it's one of the things we know that it's a really widespread common tradition. They've got we mentioned the Temple of Ephesus. They were called the Megabyzi in the Temple of Ephesus, and they were called the Inari, the hermaphrodites that ran with the Scythians, and in the then it was the Galli priests of Magna Mater of Cybele in Rome. There's the ones we know the most about. There's they're mentioned in the Mesopotamian text. Their names are escaping me, but they've got all these wild names. And it's a really fun. And then the Christian writers, early Christian church fathers, are talking about how the Temple of Venus that Constantine shut down was full of all this, like, disgusting behavior. And it's like, yeah, that's what they're talking about, man. They say history doesn't repeat, but it definitely rhymes. And like, I feel like that was another thing that really got me animated about this stuff, was like recognizing that the culture war they're going then has direct parallels to today's culture war. The feminism, the environmentalism, the trans, the weed, even the abortions. It's like, it's all there. Like, it's all wrapped up.
Yeah, we've been fighting about these things for thousands of years, and we're still fighting about them. The good news, I think, at least for our side, is it feels like we're gaining some ground. Although some days all the noise from Christian nationalists makes me think otherwise. But
they're not done yet, my friend.
Yeah,
They are
it's
not
worrisome.
They are not done yet. They have not. They're not playing all. They have not played all their cards. Not by any stretch of the imagination.
Jason, Ed, thank you guys so much for being here. And I hate to have to exile you like Asherah has been exiled from the Bible, but I do have to kick you off at some point because Wes eventually wants to go to bed or eat dinner. I mean, I don't know if he's really earned it yet.
Who cares about Wes? We don't need him.
That's right. That's right. He didn't do anything. But guys, seriously, thank you so much. And I hope we will have both of you back on Skeptic Haven very
thanks, guys. It's
shortly.
been great. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Ember, it is us. We are here. We have made it. We are at the end, my brother. And this is great, man. Thank you for being on. I always love seeing you do stuff, man. And I'm getting to see more and more of you lately. You go hang out with Maya every now and then too. I get to see you over there. So, but
yeah, on occasion.
It's good, man.
It's good stuff. I love science. I love history. This has been a great hour for that reason. But yeah, Maya does the bad science stuff, and it's
you got some good science and some bad science. That's
they're both useful.
That's right. That's right, for different things, man. Well, before you and I get the heck out of here, tell people just a little bit about you, where they can find you and stuff, in case they don't know, because y'all should be watching Better Than Ember. So,
yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, you can find me at Better Than Ember, or website is betterthanreligion.com. That's got all the links for everywhere. Although I'm not on the other socials all that much, or who needs them?
It gets a lot.
Yeah. I do counter-apologetics, debate reviews, as much science as I can sneak in. All kinds of good things.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And yeah, again, you hosted Let's Talk not too super long ago, and hopefully you'll be back on before well, I was gonna say before the year is over, but the year is almost over, so I feel like that's a tight window. I have no idea.
we are running out of year.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been over there yet. Actually, I have been. I show up on a lot. I'm like you. I show up on a lot of channels.
Right. You bounce around. Right. You just pop up every so often and ruin the party. That's what we're here for, man.
Precisely.
But seriously, everyone.
This is why we can't have nice things.
That's right. They let us in the show. I have no idea what they were thinking. I guess they couldn't find anybody else for this slot. No, but seriously, folks, to everyone that has been with us this whole time, or popping in here and there when you can, or checking us out in the future, it really means so much. I know that there's been so many videos, so many different shows that Skeptic Haven has put out there for all of us to enjoy and gather around and have a community. There is so much more work that goes on behind the scenes. When people are working a full day's work at their job and then still spending hours of their time just donating it to help make Skeptic Haven a 501c3. And so all of you being here has been so supportive and is such a great help to us. Whether you're able to donate or not, just even watching the video, giving it a thumbs up, subscribing if you haven't, all of those things are incredibly important. And if you can, please donate what you can, because it does take, unfortunately, quite a lot of funding to get all the paperwork in place, get the government to respond to messages. Always costs a premium. But guys, here's the bad news, is that we're about done for tonight. And so all of the fun we've been having is coming to a close.
But there is good news.
And I always love to leave on good news, right, Ember? Always leave them on a high note. There is a part 2. There is a part 2 to the Mythmas fundraiser special. That's right. Tomorrow, same great channel, same great time, 3 p.m. Central, you will see a whole awesome smattering of wonderful people. A couple we've seen tonight, but a whole bunch of new and awesome faces that will be hanging out tomorrow. So please set your alarms. I don't know. I was going to say clocks. Do people, it's all on the phone now. Nobody has like an actual alarm clock anymore, do they?
You can set alarms on your phone, but what I like to do is go to the YouTube video because it's already set up and click that little notify me button.
Oh my gosh, they make it easy. It's like a little, it's one button. You just click it. Oh my gosh. See, guys, this is why we have Ember here, because he knows the ways. He knows the ways to get you notified so that you don't miss great Skeptic Haven content and great guests, just like we had tonight. So 3 p.m. Central tomorrow, folks. Please join us. We hope you will. And again, seriously, thank you so much to absolutely everybody who donated. The link, tinyurl.com/giftsh2023 will still be going even after tomorrow's stream. So if you can't give anything today, but you can, next Friday, please feel free to hit us up then. But I guess, unfortunately, we finally got to get the heck out of here. Maybe we'll let Wes go eat or sleep a little, but maybe we'll give him some more work to do. But either way, folks, thank you so much for being here, and we hope to see you tomorrow for part 2.
I hope you enjoyed the Mythmas Show. Thank you to our patrons: Amanda McLeod, Eric Ozals, Ryan Denny, Murphy, Don D, Michael Weissman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Colson, Phil Calderon. Happy holidays to the whole Skeptic Haven crew.